I worked the night shift for a little over 6 years now. It's not glamorous. It's not the kind of job people dream about when they're kids. Most nights are long stretches of nothing. Just the hum of fluorescent lights, the stale smell of burnt coffee, and the soft tapping of my fingers against the desk while I wait for the phone to ring. But every now and then, something happens that reminds you why you took the job in the first place. Or it reminds you why you shouldn't have. That night started the same as any other. I clocked in at 11, took over from day's shift, and settled into my little corner of the dispatch center. We were short-staffed, so it was just me and Greg, an older guy who liked to play solitaire on his computer between calls. The hours crawled. Midnight passed. I answered a couple of routine calls. Noise complaints, a stranded driver, a drunk man who thought someone had stolen his mailbox. Nothing worth remembering. Then, at 1:12 a.m., the phone rang. I pressed my headset tighter to my ear. 911. What's your emergency? No answer. Just breathing. It was faint, like the person was holding the phone a few inches from their mouth. Uneven. A little shaky. But there. Definitely there. Hello? Can you hear me? I asked, leaning forward in my chair. Still nothing. The breathing didn't change, didn't quicken. It was just steady enough to feel intentional. Are you hurt? Are you in danger? The breathing wavered slightly, like a hitch in the chest, but no words followed. I glanced at Greg, who looked up from his screen, eyebrow raised. I mouthed, silent caller. He frowned, but went back to his game. These kinds of calls weren't unusual. Sometimes people were too scared to speak. Sometimes it was a prank. And sometimes you never figured it out. But something about this one felt wrong. Can you tap the phone once for yes, twice for no? I tried. A pause. Then nothing. Sir or ma'am, I need to know if you can hear me. The breathing grew a little louder, but still no words. I thought I heard a faint sound in the background, like wind or maybe static, but it was too soft to tell. I typed in possible open line emergency and sent the signal for a trace. It would take a minute. Where are you right now? I asked. If you can't speak, can you try to make sound? Anything. The breathing quickened, just slightly, but still no voice. It's strange, the way your body knows something before your mind does. My hands were starting to sweat against the keyboard. My mouth was dry. I kept telling myself it was probably just a scared kid or someone hiding from an intruder. But deep down, there was this prickling in the back of my neck that made me want to take the headset off. The trace started coming through, coordinates slowly populating on my screen. The location, a rural area about 15 miles outside town. But there was something odd. The address came back as a farmhouse. Abandoned. The property record showed it had been empty for over 12 years. I stared at the screen, then back at the console. Sir or ma'am, are you calling from address? I asked. The breathing stopped. Dead silence. Hello. Nothing. Listen, I have your location. Help is on the way. Stay on the line. Greg glanced over when he heard the edge of my voice. What's up? He asked quietly. I covered the mic. Trace says it's the old Thompson place. His expression soured. Nobody lives there. The line stayed quiet for maybe 5 seconds. Then, so faint I almost missed it, there was a sharp inhale. Not a gasp of surprise. Not the sound of someone in pain. It sounded deliberate. And then the line went dead. I tried calling back. Straight to a disconnected tone. I filed a report, sent units out to check, and told myself that would be the end of it. Just another strange call to add to the stack. But for the rest of my shift, I couldn't shake it. That breathing, that deliberate inhale, the way it had stopped the second I said the address. And one thing bothered me more than anything else. If the place had no phone service for over a decade, how had they called me? I didn't sleep after that first call. Not that I expected to. When something like that happens, it clings to you. You keep hearing the sound in your head over and over, no matter how hard you try to move on. The breathing. That single, sharp inhale. I worked the rest of my shift in silence, just going through the motions. Every ring of the phone made me tense. Every little static pop in the headset made my stomach twist. When my replacement finally walked in at 7 a.m., I didn't hang around. I signed out, grabbed my bag, and left without the usual small talk. But the thing is, you can't really leave this kind of job at work. I carried it with me all day. I lay in bed with the curtains drawn, the phone on silent, staring at the ceiling, thinking about that abandoned farmhouse. 12 years empty. No phone service. No power. And yet somehow a call had come through from inside. By the time I went back for my next shift, I'd almost convinced myself I'd just misunderstood the trace. Maybe it was a glitch, or maybe the coordinates were close, but not exact. Almost. Greg was already there when I came in, and I could tell from the look on his face that he'd been waiting for me. "You heard about last night?" he asked. I hung my jacket and sat down. "What about it?" "They sent Lopez out to check that place," he said, leaning back in his chair. "He didn't like it." I frowned. "What do you mean?" He said it smelled wrong. Like wet dirt, but stronger. Said the floors were dusty enough to choke you. And there was this sound. My skin prickled. "What kind of sound?" Greg tapped his desk with a finger, thinking. Like a scratching, but slow. Not mice, not rats. Up in the attic. He was going to check it out, but... But what? He said it stopped. Dead quiet. Then his radio cut out. I looked at him. It cut out. He nodded. Whole transmission went to static. He got it working again a minute later, but he didn't go back upstairs. Just cleared the place and left. We didn't talk about it after that. We had other calls to take. But I kept glancing at the dispatch log from the night before, staring at that address. Around midnight, the phone rang. I answered without thinking. 911. "What's your emergency?" No breathing this time. Just silence. I felt my throat go dry. "Hello? Can you hear me?" Then, click. The line went dead. I typed in the caller ID. Unknown number. Of course. An hour later, a burglary call came in from across town, and Greg took it. I tried to shake off the unease, telling myself I was just spooking myself. But the more I thought about that farmhouse, the less I believed it. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I keyed the radio. Unit 4 to 12, dispatch. Lopez's voice crackled through. "Go ahead. Were you the one at the old Thompson place last night?" A pause. "Yeah." "You hear anything?" Another pause, longer this time. "Why?" "Just curious," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. There was a soft burst of static. Then I heard something. In the attic. Didn't sound like an animal. What did it sound like? He hesitated. I could hear the faint hum of his cruiser in the background, the occasional pop from the radio. Then he said, like someone crawling. Slow. But it didn't stop when I called out. Just kept moving. I felt my scalp tighten. "You didn't check it?" I asked. "Didn't have backup," he said. "Besides, the floor up there looked ready to collapse. Not worth falling through for a raccoon." "Right," I said. But something told me he didn't believe it was a raccoon either. We ended the transmission. I sat there staring at my screen, tapping the desk with my nails. My stomach had that cold, hollow feeling again. At 2:04 a.m., Lopez radioed back in. "Dispatch. I'm at the Thompson place again," he said. I blinked. "Why?" He sounded almost embarrassed. Call came in about lights inside. Figured I'd check. My eyes flicked to the map. Sure enough, his unit was parked just outside the property line. "It doesn't have power," I said. "I know." He went quiet for a second, then, "All right, I'm going in." I could hear his boots on the porch, the creak of old wood. He gave a running commentary like officers do when they want the room to know what's happening. Front doors still unlocked. Smells like mold. No sign of anyone on the first floor. Heading up. The old staircase groaned under his weight. "Dust everywhere," he muttered. "Looks like nobody's touched this place in years. Except..." He stopped. "Except what?" I asked. I heard him breathing into the radio, just a little heavier now. "There's footprints in the dust. Bare feet, leading up to the attic door." I gripped the edge of my desk. "You've got backup on the way?" "Yeah, they're about 15 minutes out." Another creak as he moved closer to the attic ladder. "Gonna check it out," he said. "Lopez, maybe wait for..." The radio filled with a dull thunk, like wood hitting wood. Then I heard it, faint but clear, something moving above him. Not footsteps. Not really. It was a dragging sound. "Lopez, what is that?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. I could hear him breathing, the way it caught in his throat. "It's moving away from me," he said finally. "Toward the far side. Slow. Real slow." Then it stopped. The silence stretched on so long, I thought the transmission had dropped. And then, in the quiet, something else came through the radio. A whisper. It wasn't Lopez. It wasn't even close to the mic. It sounded far away, muffled, like it was inside the walls. I couldn't make out the words. "Lopez," I said. Static burst in my ear. When it cleared, all I could hear was Lopez's boots pounding down the stairs. His breath came hard and fast. "Out of the house," he said. "Now." "Lopez, what did you see?" No answer. "Lopez." And then, nothing. The radio cut off entirely. I sat frozen, one hand gripping the mic, the other pressed flat against my desk. The dispatch room felt smaller somehow, the air heavier. Greg had stopped his solitaire game and was watching me, his expression tight. We didn't hear from Lopez for another 20 minutes. When he finally called in, his voice was flat, like he was forcing himself to sound normal. "House is clear," he said. I almost asked if he was sure, but something in his tone told me not to. He filed his report, just a few lines about finding no one on the property. But I noticed he didn't mention the footprints, or the whisper, and I noticed something else. When he spoke to me directly after, when no one else could hear, he said, "Don't answer if that number calls again." I told myself I wasn't going to do it. All day, I repeated it like a mantra. Don't go out there. Don't be stupid. But the thing about this job is some calls stick to you. They don't fade into the static. They crawl under your skin and stay there. You start replaying them in your head, wondering if you could have done something differently, wondering what you missed. And sometimes you just need to see it for yourself. By the time my next day off rolled around, I'd already made up my mind. I didn't tell anyone. Not Greg. Not my supervisor. Definitely not Lopez. I just drove. It was about a 40-minute trip, most of it on back roads. The farther I got from town, the more the houses thinned out until there were only fields, broken fences, and the occasional rotting barn. I found the turnoff without a sign, just a dirt path lined with tall grass, half swallowed by weeds. My tires crunched over gravel as I followed it. The farmhouse appeared slowly, almost reluctantly, like it didn't want to be seen. It was smaller than I'd pictured, just 2 stories, paint peeled to barewood in most places. The porch sagged. One shutter hung loose, swaying a little even though there was no wind. I parked a few yards back and sat there for a minute with the engine off, listening to the ticking of the cooling metal. It was so quiet. Not country quiet, where you still hear insects or the distant hum of tractor. This was empty quiet, like the air itself had stopped moving. When I finally stepped out, the grass brushed against my legs. The dirt was soft under my shoes. I felt like I was trespassing, and not just because of property lines. The front steps groaned as I climbed them. The door was shut, but the lock was rusted through. It opened with a reluctant push, dragging against the floor. The smell hit me first. Damp, old wood, something faintly sour underneath. Dust covered everything, a thick gray blanket over the floorboards, the counters, the toppled chair in the corner. My first step left a clear footprint behind me. I moved slowly, my hands shoved in my jacket pockets, so I wouldn't touch anything. The living room was small, with a sagging couch and a fireplace choked with ash. A few picture frames still hung on the walls, but the faces inside had faded to vague shapes. I don't know why I expected it to feel different. Scarier, maybe, but it was just a dead house. Until I saw the phone. It was an old rotary model, sitting on a little table in the hallway. The cord hung loose, cut clean at the base. I crouched down, running my finger along the end. It wasn't frayed. It wasn't worn. It was like someone had sliced it in one motion. No phone service for years, the record had said. And yet, I stood there longer than I should have, staring at it. Then I made myself move on. The kitchen was worse. Cabinets hanging open, a dead mouse curled in the sink. The floor creaked in strange places, bending slightly under my weight. And upstairs, the staircase leaned just enough to make you feel off balance. Each step let out a small, high-pitched whine, like it was warning the rest of the house. The second floor was just 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. The bathroom door was shut. I didn't open it. One of the bedrooms looked untouched. The other had footprints. Clear, bare footprints in the dust, leading from the doorway to the far wall, and stopping there. I followed them with my eyes, and that's when I saw it. A small table against the wall, and on it another phone. This one wasn't rotary. It was a cheap plastic landline from maybe the 90s. The cord ran to the wall, but the jack was empty. just a loose wire hanging there. I froze, because the receiver was warm. Not just sunlight through the window warm. This room was cold. The air had a bite to it. And yet, when I touched the phone, it felt like someone had been holding it minutes ago. I set it back down as gently as I could. My heart was pounding in my ears. There was no reason for it to be warm. I backed away toward the hall. My foot brushed something on the floor, and I looked down to see a strip of paper. I picked it up without thinking. It was a phone bill, dated 2009. The amount due was highlighted in red, but what caught my attention was the number at the top, the house's old number. The same number that had come through my headset 3 nights ago. My mouth went dry. I slipped the bill into my pocket and left the room without looking back at the phone. By the time I reached the front door, the silence in the house felt heavier, like it had noticed me. My hand shook as I pulled the door closed behind me. Outside, the air felt thinner, lighter. I didn't breathe easy until I was back in my car with the doors locked. I drove home without turning on the radio. That night, I lay in bed with the lights on, staring at the folded bill on my nightstand. Every time I reached for it, I stopped myself. I didn't want to read the rest. I didn't want to see if there were other numbers listed. But I kept thinking about that phone upstairs, sitting there with no service, no connection, and still warned that I wasn't supposed to be back on shift yet. I'd taken the extra day off, told them I still felt a little under the weather. It wasn't a lie, not exactly. My stomach had been in knots since that night at the farmhouse, like my body was holding on to something it didn't understand. But after pacing my apartment all day, staring at the same walls, the same muted TV flicker, the silence pressing in, I decided I'd rather sit in that little call center room than be alone with my own thoughts. It was late when I clocked in. My coworkers barely looked up. The night crew always kept their heads down. Just the soft murmur of overlapping calls, the glow of computer screens, and the occasional clearing of a throat. I slid into my chair, adjusted the headset, logged in. The hum of the line filled my ears. There's a kind of comfort in that, the steady background hiss, like proof the world is still connected. For about an hour, it was quiet. Too quiet, really. A couple of wrong numbers. One drunk guy slurring into the line until I redirected him to the non-emergency number. The usual. And then it happened. The sound. That breathing. It was so soft, I almost thought it was my own at first. That slow, measured inhale, the faint rasp of an exhale. But no, I froze, holding my breath completely. The sound kept going. It was exactly the same as before. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, ready to flag the call for a trace, but I didn't hit it right away. I just sat there listening. Hello. My voice cracked on the word. The breathing didn't change. This is dispatch. Do you need assistance? Nothing. But I could hear something underneath it this time. A faint, wet sound in the pauses between breaths. Like the sound of someone running their tongue slowly over dry lips. Sir? Or ma'am? If you can hear me, say something. The breathing stopped. That silence, that single, sharp absence of sound, made my skin crawl worse than anything. I almost took my headset off. And then I heard it. My name. Not shouted. Not urgent. Just a whisper. Soft. Intimate. Sala. It was my voice. No, it wasn't just similar. It was me. The exact tone. The exact way I say my name when I'm introducing myself. The way the R barely rolls. I felt my stomach twist. This is a recorded line. I managed to say my own voice sounding too loud now. All calls are traceable. You should know that. A faint laugh. My laugh. Low. A little strained, like I just run up a flight of stairs. You're home right now, Sala. I tried to keep my breathing steady, but I could feel my pulse in my ears. That's not possible. I'm at work. The line hissed, just static for a moment. And then, I'm at your home. I stabbed a trace button. The system chimed, lines of text flickering on my monitor. The routing details began to populate. I watched them come in, the area code first. My stomach dropped. It was my own area code, then my own street. And then, line by line, my exact address appeared on the screen. The call was coming from my apartment. For a moment, I forgot to breathe. My mind raced. Had someone broken in? Was this some kind of sick prank? No one had a key except the landlord, and he was an old man who barely remembered to pick up his mail. The voice spoke again, quieter this time. You left the light on in the kitchen. I pictured it instantly. That pale yellow glow spilling over the linoleum. I hadn't been in the kitchen since breakfast. I turned the light off. I know I had. You're lying, I said, though my voice didn't sound like mine anymore. You can come home and see, my voice whispered back. The trace finalized. The system confirmed the source was my landline. My landline, the one sitting on a small table by my couch, buried under old magazines and unopened mail. I could feel the rest of the room around me blur out. The other operators were still taking calls, still murmuring into their headsets, but it all felt far away. Why? I asked before I could stop myself. Because you answered me, the voice said. And then the line went dead. I yanked the headset off, my chair scraping back. My supervisor glanced over, frowning, but I was already logging out. I mumbled something about needing air, about feeling dizzy. She didn't stop me. The night outside was cold, the kind that bites at your fingers, even through your sleeves. I got in my car without thinking, my hands trembling as I fumbled the keys. Halfway to my apartment, I realized I didn't have a plan. What was I going to do? Walk in, find some stranger sitting in my living room, and what? Call the police from inside? Run? Every streetlight felt too far apart. Every shadow seemed to lean toward my car as I passed. When I pulled into the lot, I sat there for a while, engine running. My window was dark. The kitchen light wasn't visible from outside. That meant nothing. I finally got out, every sound amplified, the crunch of gravel under my shoes, the wind tugging at the branches above. The front door looked normal. Too normal. The deadbolt was still locked. I unlocked it, stepped inside. The smell hit me first. It wasn't rot exactly. More like the air had been closed up for years, stale, with a faint undercurrent of something metallic. The kitchen light was off. I stood there in the entryway, staring at it. The landline sat on a small table, the cord curling down toward the floor. The handset was resting in its cradle like it hadn't been touched. I walked over slow. My fingers hovered above it. It was warm, not just faintly. It was like someone had been holding it for a long time. I picked it up. The dial tone was there, steady. I lifted it closer to my ear. Breathe in, breathe out. Slow, measured. And then, my voice. You shouldn't have come home. The line went dead. I dropped the receiver, the plastic clattering against the table. Something creaked overhead. I don't have an upstairs. The sound came again, from above the ceiling, slow, deliberate, like weight shifting on old wood. I backed toward the door, my hand finding the knob. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. I didn't call the police. I didn't want to explain it. I just left, got back in the car, drove until the horizon began to lighten. I slept in the parking lot behind the station, and when my shift came around, I went inside and pretended nothing had happened. But I can still feel that warmth on the receiver, like it's waiting for me to pick it up again. And I know if I do, it'll still be breathing. The call came in just after midnight. Quiet night so far. No traffic stops. No drunk and disorderly. Just the steady hum of the dispatch room and the tick of the wall clock that never seemed to match my watch. I was halfway through my second cup of coffee when the phone lit up on the panel. No number, just the word line IN. I pressed the button. 911, what's your emergency? For a second, I thought no one was there. Then I heard it, breathing. Not the panic kind, not labored or gasping, just close, too close. The sound of someone pressing their mouth right against the receiver. I repeated my greeting, my voice just a little sharper. That's when I heard the whisper. They're above me. It was a man's voice. Weak, strained, like he was forcing the words through clenched teeth. I sat up straighter. Sir, can you tell me your address? A pause. More breathing. Then, they're crawling. A chill prickled at the back of my neck. I tried again. Sir, I need you to tell me where you are. Are you in danger? There was a faint rustle, like the sound of fabric against wood. He whispered again, and the sound of his voice seemed to shiver right into my ear. In the ceiling, they're right above me. I started typing into the system, logging what little I had. Male caller, possible intruder in the ceiling. No address yet. Sir, are you inside a house? Can you see a door? A window? He coughed quick, muffled. Then, like he was forcing every word through his throat. I'm in the walls. The words made my stomach tighten. The walls? Are you hiding? He didn't answer my question. He just whispered, almost like he was afraid to be heard. They think I'm gone, but I can hear them moving, right over me. I heard it then too. Faint, almost not there. A sound in the background of the call. A slow, irregular thump. Then a scrape, like fingertips dragging along wood. I swallowed and kept my voice steady. I'm sending help, but I need an address. Can you look around and tell me anything you see? Another pause. The breathing came faster now. I can't move too much. It's tight in here. Smells like dust. He coughed again. I think I'm under the floor, or in the crawl space. That was enough to get me typing faster. A trapped subject. Possible home invasion. We'd send police and fire both. But without a location. I tried again. Sir, is this your house? Do you know the street? His reply was so soft, I almost missed it. No, I don't know where I am. They brought me here. Every muscle in my body went tense. This wasn't just a break-in. What do you mean they brought you here? There was a long pause. I thought the line had gone dead. Then he spoke, voice shaking. They've been feeding me. My fingers froze over the keyboard. Who has? Can you describe them? Don't know. I only hear them. At night. Crawling. A shiver ran down my arms. And you think they're above you now? Yes. His breathing quickened. They're close. Closer than before. And then, a sound loud enough that I flinched. Not through my headset. Through his. A sudden, heavy thud. Followed by something dragging. Sir, listen to me. I said quickly, keeping my voice low like I was talking to a skittish animal. You have to stay quiet and still. I'm going to get help to you. But I need something to go on. Can you hear anything else? Traffic? Water. I could hear him shifting slightly, like he was trying to move without making noise. Then, his voice dropped to a whisper so faint it was almost part of the static. Breathing, it wasn't his. I could hear it too. A second set of lungs, slow and wet, somewhere above him. Sir, I said, fighting the urge to whisper back. Can you get to phone Jack? Anything to tell me what kind of building you're in. There's wood and dirt. It's damp. A soft creak sounded on the line, like a floorboard flexing. They stopped moving, he said suddenly, panic bleeding into his voice. I was typing notes as fast as I could, but the truth was without an address, my hands were tied. Sir, I need you to... A muffled bang cut me off. Then another. The line hissed with a burst of static, and the breathing above him got louder, heavier, like something pressing its face to the floorboards. Don't let them, he started, but then the call cut out. Just dead air. I tried calling back. Nothing. The line read NO signal. I sat there for a moment, staring at the screen, the cursor blinking like it was tapping its foot. My hands were cold. Calls like that, they don't leave you. Not the words. Not the sounds. And especially not the breathing. I told myself it was probably some disturbed individual. Maybe a prank. Maybe a man high out of his mind, hiding from shadows. But the way he whispered, the way the other breathing had joined in, that stayed with me. I went through protocol, logged it, marked it unresolved, attached the audio to the file. It would end up in the stack with 100 other strange calls, waiting for someone to maybe notice. But even after I closed it out, I kept hearing that last part. The pause. The way he said, they stopped moving. Like whatever it was listening that I didn't sleep after the first call. I went home that night, lay in bed, and just stared at the ceiling, my mind replaying his voice. The way he whispered. The way each word trembled, like he was already halfway to giving up. The crawl space. The breathing above him. I kept hearing it in my head like an echo stuck in a loop. The next shift came too soon. It always does when something gnaws at you. My eyes were still burning from the lack of sleep, and the dispatch room's fluorescent lights only made it worse. That place has no mercy on the tired. The screens flickered. Lines blinked. Calls came and went. You get numb to most of them over the years. Domestic disputes, car wrecks, noise complaints. But I wasn't numb tonight. Every time the phone rang, I found myself bracing. Not for what it might be, but for who it might be. Halfway through my shift, it happened. The line lit up. I answered the same way. I always do. Clear, professional, automatic. And then, that breathing. It was faint at first, almost buried under static. Slow, wet, dragging in and out like each breath hurt to take. I froze. My fingers tightened on the headset. "Hello," I asked, even though I knew. His voice came through, lower than last time, but still whispering like he was afraid the air around him might hear. "She's right above me." I swallowed hard. "Is this? You remember me?" It wasn't a question. A weak cough followed, then more breathing. "I'm still in here." I leaned toward the monitor, pulling up the location from the call trace. My pulse quickened. The map loaded. The pin dropped. It didn't make sense. It was an address, but not one I'd ever seen in our system before. The street name was wrong. The number didn't match any block in our jurisdiction. It was like it was stitched together from pieces of other addresses. "Can you repeat where you are?" I asked. "I want to make sure I'm getting this right." He gave the same location, word for word. Exact same way. No hesitation. I typed it again. Still nothing. My throat felt tight. "Sir, are you certain about that address? Because I can't." "Shoo." His whisper sliced into mine. "Don't talk so loud." I felt my chest tighten as I instinctively lowered my voice. "Why?" "She'll hear you," he breathed. "She's listening now." Static flared in my ear, like someone brushing their thumb over the mic. I heard something else in it, faint but sharp. Scraping. Slow. Deliberate. Like fingernails dragging across wood. He exhaled shakily. "That's her nails." I tried to keep my voice steady. "You said she's above you?" "Yes." His voice cracked, and for a moment I thought he was crying. "She's crawling. She stops when I look up. She's trying to figure out where to drop down." The image hit me all at once. Dark boards, dust falling with every movement, something waiting, pressed flat above him. I asked him to describe the house. If we couldn't find it on the map, maybe we could still get units there. He spoke in broken sentences like every word cost him. "It's old wood floors, smells wet. Walls are peeling. I think she keeps me here." Something in that last sentence twisted my gut. "Keeps you? I can't get out. The door won't open. The windows." His voice faded into a breath. "She's right above me." More scraping. Closer now. I felt myself gripping the desk, so hard my fingers hurt. "Listen, sir, I'm going to stay on the line with you. But I need you to tell me. Have you seen her? What does she look like?" His breathing quickened. "Don't make me look. Please. I'm not asking you to look. Just tell me if you've seen her before." He didn't answer right away. I heard him shift. The sound of cloth brushing against something rough. "I've only seen parts," he whispered. "An arm, too long. Fingers that curl backward. Her head doesn't fit right." I felt a cold ripple crawl up my spine. "She waits," he added, "until I'm almost asleep. Then she moves. I think she likes the sound I make when I wake up." I swallowed, trying to keep my own voice from shaking. "Do you know how you got there?" Another pause. Then, "I don't remember." And then, sharp, quick tapping above him. Not nails this time. Fingers. Drumming. He gasped. "She's moving toward the vent." "Vent? There's a grate above me. I can hear her breath through it." I tried again to trace the call, reroute the signal, force the system to pin the location. Nothing worked. The screen kept flashing the same broken address. "Sir, I need you to—" A loud, drawn-out scrape cut me off. He whimpered. "She's lowering her hand through the vent." My pulse spiked. "You need to get away from it. Move somewhere else in the room." "I can't." "Why?" A single, choked laugh escaped him, dry, hopeless. "There's nowhere else." The sound of fingernails on metal made me flinch. I heard him shifting again, breathing faster. "She's touching the floor now. Just her nails. I think she's tasting it." Every instinct told me this wasn't something I could solve. Not from here. Not from anywhere. But my training wouldn't let me hang up. "What's your name?" I asked suddenly. He hesitated. "Doesn't matter. I don't think I'll have it much longer." My chest felt tight. "You're going to be okay. Just keep talking to me." He started to whisper something else, but the words blurred. It was like the static swallowed them. Then, louder than before, 3 solid knocks from above. He inhaled sharply. "She knows you're here now." The line filled with the sound of nails scraping faster, circling the space above him. "She's looking for you," he whispered. I froze. "What do you mean?" "She's not just in here," he said, voice shaking. "She's in yours too." Before I could respond, the line went dead. Just like the first time. No click. No goodbye. Just silence. I stared at the dead line for a long time. The other calls kept coming in, my coworkers' voices filling the room, but I didn't hear any of it. I tried to call the number back. It rang once, then gave me a busy tone. When I checked the call log, the number wasn't there. Just an empty line, like nothing had ever come through. But the sound, the scraping, I swear I still heard it. Not from my headset, from somewhere above me that I don't think I slept the night after that call. I went home, sure. I laid down, but my head kept replaying the sound of his whisper. The way his breath caught every few seconds, like he was trying not to cry. And the part that got me most, the scrape. That slow, dragging sound that I swear I could still hear in my head hours later, even over the hum of my fridge. The next shift, I came in early. I told myself it was to get caught up on paperwork, but really, I just wanted to see if anything had come back about the call. Maybe a follow-up from the officers who were dispatched. The board was empty. No report. No resolved. No unable to locate. Just nothing. I asked one of the day shift dispatchers if she'd heard anything. She gave me this half shrug, half frown. Which call? She asked. The guy trapped in the house. Whispering. Said someone was crawling above him. She squinted like she was trying to remember, then shook her head. Didn't hear a word about that. What was the address? And that's when it hit me. I didn't actually have the address. The man gave me one. I remember writing it down, but the handwriting in my notebook didn't look right. I mean, it was mine, but the numbers and letters felt crooked, almost wrong. I read it aloud to her. She frowned deeper. That's not a real street, she said. I told her it had to be. He said it twice, even spelled it out. She rolled her chair over to her terminal, typed it into the map database, and nothing. Not address not found. Not check spelling. Just a blank white box. Like the system didn't even know what I was asking. She looked up at me. Closest road to that name is 20 miles out. No cell towers anywhere near it. You sure you didn't copy it wrong? I wanted to say I was sure, but now I wasn't. Still, the call was logged, right? That's what matters. So I pulled up our own system, found a recording, and sure enough, the address he gave matched my notes exactly. Same weird name. Same cadence in his whisper when he said it. And then something else. At the end of the address, after the number, there was this pause. A long one. And in the silence, under his breathing, you could hear it. That scraping sound. Only this time, it was faster. We sent an officer anyway. Not to the address, since apparently it didn't exist, but to the nearest physical location the map would allow. A rural road. A patch of woods. He called in after about half an hour. His voice came through a little shaky. Dispatch. Are you sure you got the right coordinates? Affirmative, I said. That's as close as we can get to the given address. Well, he said, I'm here. And this road? It's a dead end. Leads into a field. No houses for miles. Just an old dirt path into the trees. No cell reception except in this one spot I'm standing. He paused. And you said the caller was inside a house. I told him yes. Whispering. Said someone was crawling above him. The line went quiet for a few seconds. Then, very carefully, he said, You're not going to believe this, but there's insulation scattered all over the ground out here. Like it fell from somewhere. And up, his voice lowered. There's a square piece of plywood, maybe 3 feet across, lying in the grass. And in the middle of it, there's a hole, like somebody pushed up from underneath. I asked if he was sure it wasn't just junk. He said no. The wood still had nails in the corners, bent outward, like it had been ripped from something. And the insulation, it was fresh, still soft, like it hadn't been sitting there long. I wanted to ask more, but his signal dropped. Just click. I tried calling back, but it went straight to static. He didn't radio again for almost an hour. When he finally did, his tone was clipped, professional, like he was reading from a checklist. Clear the area. No structures. No signs of anyone present. Returning to base. That was it. No mention of the hole. No mention of the insulation. Later that night, I listened to the call again. Not because I had to, because I couldn't stop myself. And here's the part that's been eating at me ever since. When the man first gave the address, I thought the sound under his voice was just that slow scraping. But this time, with the volume turned all the way up, I heard something else. A whisper. Not his. Higher. Fainter. Like it was just behind him. And though I couldn't make out the words, I could hear the shape of them. The rhythm. It was saying the same address he was. The officer who went out there never talked about it. I asked him once, just casual, like I was curious about that weird no-signal road. And he looked at me for a long time before shaking his head. "Nothing there," he said. "Just woods." But there was this hesitation. Like maybe that wasn't the whole truth. A week later, he took 2 weeks leave. Came back quieter, more tired. And one night, when it was just the two of us in the break room, he muttered something I'll never forget. "I kept thinking about that plywood," he said. "The nails were bent from the inside out. You know what that means, right?" I said no. "It means someone was in whatever was under there, and they were trying to get out." I never heard from the original caller again. No follow-ups. No second call. Just silence. But sometimes, when it's quiet in the dispatch room, and I'm alone on the late shift, I'll pick up faint noises in the static. Not voices. Not exactly. More like breath. Slow. Careful. And if I listen too long, it starts to sound like it's coming from above me. I don't think I'll ever forget the sound. Not the scream. Not the dragging. Not even the voice that followed. It's the silence in between. The way it sat there, heavy, like it was waiting for me to fill it. The call had already been strange from the start. We'd been chasing a location that didn't exist, dealing with radio static that made everyone on my end a little more irritable than usual. The officers who went out had found signs that someone or something had been in that attic. But after that, things started moving too fast for me to keep up. The last time I spoke to Officer Kane, he sounded tired but steady. His voice was clipped, like he was holding his breath while talking. "We're going to check the crawl space," he'd said. It wasn't a question or an update, just a flat fact, like he was already inside. The line crackled. My monitors still showed active call. His breathing was shallow, faint, like the mic was brushing against his collar. I was about to respond when there was a thud. A deep, hollow one, like someone dropping a knee onto old wood. Then another. "You still with me?" I asked. No answer. Just Kane's breathing and something else under it. It was faint at first, a light, intermittent scrape, like fingertips dragging over a surface. But the sound wasn't smooth. It had these little catches, like the nails were long and catching on splinters. I felt my stomach turn. Unit 4 confirmed status. Nothing. Then Kane spoke low, almost like he was whispering to himself. "She's right above me." There was something in his voice, not fear exactly. More like awe, like he was seeing something that didn't belong in the world and couldn't decide if he was terrified or fascinated. I didn't know what to say. Dispatch training doesn't cover that. I could hear him moving now, his boots shifting against the insulation. Then his mic picked up a sound I wish I could forget, slow, deliberate crawling. Not him. The rhythm was wrong. It was too fluid, too close, too eager. I had the other units en route, but their voices over the radio were distant. No one was close enough to help in time. "Kane, get out of there," I said. "Do not engage. Back out of the—" There was a sharp crack, and his mic flared with static. The next thing I heard was a muffled scream, like his mouth was covered mid-breath. Then the dragging started. It wasn't fast. It wasn't chaotic. It was patient. Kane's body, or whatever part of him could still move, was being pulled across the boards, his boots catching against the joists. Every couple of seconds, there was a hollow thunk when his foot hit a beam. Somewhere in all that noise, there was a voice. It was quiet at first, almost like it was speaking from inside the walls. I had turned my headset volume all the way up. "Where's your dispatcher?" I froze. It didn't say, "Who is your dispatcher?" It didn't say, "Who are you talking to?" It asked where I was. I didn't answer. My hand hovered over the transmit button, but I knew, instinctively, that answering would make it worse. The dragging stopped. The line hissed with static. Then, in the faintest whisper, right against the mic, "I can hear her." My throat tightened. It wasn't just that it knew I was listening, it sounded happy about it. Another thud. Then Kane's breathing returned, but it was ragged, wheezing. He coughed, gagging on something I couldn't see out. And then the feed cut. I stared at the dead line on my console for what felt like forever. The other units arrived minutes later, but their voices came in strained and uncertain. "Dispatch, be advised we're not finding him." "What do you mean you're not finding him?" I said, my voice cracking in a way I hoped they didn't hear. "Crawl space is empty," they replied. "No sign of Kane." "But there's—" The officer trailed off, like he didn't want to finish. "There's what?" I pressed. Silence. Then, there's another hole. Smaller. Fresh wood break. It leads deeper into the house, but there's no access point. Just darkness. They didn't go in. I don't blame them. I went home that night with my skin crawling. I sat in my kitchen, staring at my phone, half expecting it to ring, even though it was my personal line. When I finally went to bed, I kept thinking about that voice. The way it said dispatcher, like it had been practicing the word. Like I wanted to make sure I knew it was talking to me. Sleep didn't come easy, and when it did, I dreamed of the crawl space. Only, I was the one under the boards. I could feel the insulation brushing against my face, smell the dust, and rot. I couldn't move my legs. My arms were pinned at my sides. Above me, nails scraped slowly across the wood. The boards flexed as something shifted its weight. I could hear its breath, wet, shallow, close enough that I could feel it on my cheek through the cracks. And then, "Where's your dispatcher?" I woke up shaking, the sound still ringing in my head. I didn't go back to sleep. The next day, the official report came in. Officer came missing. Presumed injured. Search ongoing. But I knew. Somewhere in some dark space no map shows, something had him. And it knew my voice now that IT started just after midnight. The phone lines were dead quiet that night, except for the hum of my headset and the ticking of the old wall clock behind me. That sound always reminded me of being in detention back in high school. The slow, steady tick that makes time feel heavier than it should. I've been staring at my monitor for maybe 20 minutes without a single call. It was one of those shifts where you start to think, maybe I'll make it through without anything bad happening. Then my screen lit up. Line 3. No caller ID. I put my headset on and answered the way we always do, steady and professional. 911, what's your emergency? There was nothing at first, just air. Not the normal background noise of a TV or traffic. This was heavier. A faint hiss, like the sound you get when you press your ear against a seashell. Then a man's voice, low and trembling. "She's in my yard." My stomach tightened. "Okay, sir, who's in your yard?" He didn't answer right away. I could hear his breathing, fast, uneven. Then he said, "She's just standing there." That tick of the clock behind me felt louder now. "Is this someone you know?" No, a pause. "I've never seen her before. She's just looking at me." I leaned forward. "Looking at you from where exactly?" He swallowed audibly. "I'm in my kitchen. She's by the tree line, maybe 20 feet from my window." I pulled up the incident report form and started typing. "Okay, sir, I'm sending an officer to your location. Can you tell me your address?" He gave it without hesitation, voice shaking. I knew the area, a quiet stretch of road, just outside town, mostly farmland and woods. Not the kind of place you'd expect a stranger to be wandering around at midnight. "Sir, can you describe her for me?" Another pause. His voice dropped almost to a whisper. "She's tall. Taller than me, I think. Long hair. It's black. Her clothes are, I don't know, they look old." I glanced at the clock. "Is she doing anything threatening?" "No. She's just staring." I told him to stay inside, keep the doors locked, and that help was on the way. He kept repeating, "She's just standing there. She's just standing there." Then the line went dead. I stared at the screen. Call dropped. Not ended, dropped. Out there, where cell service is spotty, that wasn't unusual. But the way it happened, the abruptness of it, I didn't like it. I dispatched a unit and made a note for them to do a welfare check. 15 minutes later, my phone lit up again. Same number. 911. What's your emergency? It's me, he said, almost gasping. She hasn't moved. My skin prickled. The woman in your yard? Yes. His breathing was faster now. I closed all the blinds, but I can still feel her looking at me. I try to keep my voice calm. The officer is on their way, sir. Stay inside. Do you hear me? Stay inside. She hasn't even blinked. I bit my lip, scribbling notes. How can you tell from inside the house? I peeked. Just once. His voice cracked. I didn't want to, but I had to know if she was still there. She's closer now. How close? He hesitated. 10 feet. The hair on my arms stood straight up. Are you sure? Did she move while you were looking? No. I never saw her move. His voice was trembling now. It's like she slid closer when I wasn't looking. Something about the way he said slid made my stomach turn. I told him again to lock all doors, keep away from windows, and that I'd stay on the line until the officer arrived. Then, Faintly, through the receiver, I heard it. A low hum, almost like a tune being hummed through closed lips. Slow, steady, and somehow wrong. "Do you hear that?" I asked. His voice was shaking. "That's her." I felt my pulse in my ears. "What is she doing now?" "She's smiling." We stayed on the line until I saw the unit status update come through. They were pulling up to the address. I told him, "The officer is outside. Stay where you are." But he said something that made my mouth go dry. No, he's not." I checked the dispatch system again. The GPS ping showed the officer's cruiser in front of the property. "Sir, I'm looking at their location right now." "She's waving," he whispered. I froze. "She's waving at you." Then the line dropped again. I didn't like the way my hands were shaking as I took my headset off to call the officer directly. He picked up after the first ring, voice casual. "I'm here, but the place is dark," he said. No sign of anyone outside. Knocked on the door, no answer. "Looks like nobody's home." That didn't make sense. I told him a man had called twice in the last half hour, terrified, claiming someone was outside staring at him. The officer walked the property, found no footprints in the fresh dew, no movement in the tree line. The whole time, I kept glancing at the clock, at the empty call screen, waiting for the line to light up again. It didn't. I thought that was the end of it, a strange, possibly drunk caller, maybe even a prank. But around 2:15 a.m., the line rang again. I answered. It was him. "She's at the door." The way he said it, low, breathless, I knew he wasn't making it up. I told him the officer had been there earlier, and he said, "No one came here." No one. I didn't argue. I just asked, "Is the door locked?" "Yes." "Where are you in the house?" "In the kitchen." "Is she still looking at you?" A long pause. Then no. Relief washed over me for half a second before he added, "She's looking at the phone." I think I actually stopped breathing. "What do you mean?" "She knows I'm talking to you." And then, I swear to God, I heard a faint click on the line, like another phone had picked up somewhere. The hum came back, louder this time. I tried to get him to stay with me, but his voice was barely above a whisper now. "Do you see her too?" Before I could answer, the call went dead. The next day, the house was empty. No sign of forced entry. No sign anyone had been there for weeks. But when the officer walked the tree line, he found something in the grass. A long strand of black hair. Longer than any human hair should be that didn't sleep the night after his first call. It's strange how a voice can stick in your head. It wasn't just what he said, it was how he said it. Shaky, barely above a whisper, like someone who'd already been whispering for hours, too scared to speak normally, too scared to hang up. I left work at 7 a.m., but by the time I made it home, I just sat in my car in the driveway for 20 minutes. I kept looking at my own yard, thinking about what he'd seen in his, or what he thought he'd seen. I told myself it was probably nothing. Hallucination, maybe someone's porch light hitting the trees wrong. That kind of thing. But I couldn't stop replaying his voice. I was back in dispatch that night. Same chair. Same hum of the monitors. Same stale coffee smell. About an hour into the shift, the call came in. Same number. Same man. I answered like normal, but before I could even finish the greeting, he said, "She's still here." I could hear his breathing. It was faster this time, more uneven. "Sir," I said, "I need you to tell me exactly where you are. Officers are on the way." "I never left," he said. "I've been sitting in the kitchen all day." "She hasn't moved. She's just watching the house." I asked if he'd try to speak to her. He said no. I asked if she tried to come closer. He said, "Not yet." The yet stuck with me. 2 units arrived within 10 minutes. The caller stayed on the phone with me the whole time. I could hear the faint sound of sirens growing louder through his end of the line, but he never stopped whispering. When the officers pulled up, I patched through the radio. One of them reported, "Yard is clear. No one's here." I related to the caller. He didn't answer right away. I could hear something, a faint creak, like someone shifting in a chair. Then he said, "That's not possible." I told him the officers had checked the property. Front yard, side yard, even behind the fence. No sign of anyone. "Tell them," he stopped. I could hear his breathing again. "Tell them she's not outside anymore." The officers went to the door. He let them in. I stayed on the line, listening. They walked through the house with him. Living room, kitchen, hallway. "Clear." "Sir, there's no one here. one of the officers said. I thought that might calm him down, but it didn't. He just kept saying, she's here. You just can't see her. About 20 minutes later, the units cleared the scene. I hung up, logged the call, and tried to move on. But then, about an hour later, I got a message from one of the officers. Just a quick text. Check the dash cam. No context. No explanation. Just those words. I opened the footage. The dash cam was angled toward the house. You could see the front porch, lit by a single overhead bulb. The timestamp matched the moment the officers had been inside with the caller. At first, I didn't notice anything. Just the house, the porch, the faint shadow of a tree moving in the wind. Then, movement. In the corner of the frame, where the driveway met the side of the house, a figure. A woman, standing completely still, not moving, not blinking. She wasn't facing the camera, she was facing the front door. I paused the footage. Her hair was dark, too dark, like the shadows had soaked into it. She wore something light-colored, maybe a dress, but the fabric didn't quite look right. It almost shimmered, like the texture didn't belong in the image. The thing that got me, though, was her head. It was tilted just enough to look wrong, like she was studying the front door the way you'd study a lock you were about to pick. I hit play again. The officers opened the door. The caller stepped out for a moment, still holding his phone to his ear. And in that exact second, the woman wasn't by the driveway anymore. She was right behind him, less than a foot away, standing there, head tilted the same way, staring at the back of his neck. Neither of the officers reacted. They were looking right past her. They didn't see her, but the dash cam did. I scrubbed forward. The caller stepped back inside. The door closed. The woman stayed on the porch for a few seconds, still facing the door. Then she turned, slowly, toward the camera. And even though her face was just a blur in the low light, I swear, it felt like she was looking at me. I didn't tell anyone what I saw. I just shut the video, closed the message, and tried to focus on the next call. But my hands wouldn't stop shaking, because the caller had been right. She was there, and she wasn't alone. The next night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. It was one thing for someone to see something no one else could. Hallucinations happen. Stress does weird things to people. But this wasn't in his head. I saw her too, which meant she was real. I kept expecting the phone to ring again. I even found myself staring at the monitor, waiting for his number to pop up. And when it finally did, I didn't feel relief. I felt dread. He didn't start with hello this time. He just whispered, she's back. I asked where she was. She's not in the yard anymore, he said. I told him to check the doors, the windows. They're locked, he said. Doesn't matter. I asked what he meant. He didn't answer. In the background, I heard it. Not movement. Not footsteps. Breathing. Not his. Too slow. Too deep. Like someone who'd been holding their breath for a very long time and had just started again. I asked if he was alone in the house. She's not alone, he whispered. I felt my stomach drop. What do you mean? I asked. I mean, there's more than one of them now. I called for units immediately. 2 cars. Lights and sirens. I stayed on the line, trying to keep him talking. What do they look like? I asked. I don't know, he said. They don't move like people. The line went quiet for a long time. I thought maybe he dropped the phone. Then I heard a sound I still can't explain. Like fingers drumming on wood. Too fast. Too many at once. And then, underneath it, something else. A voice. A woman's voice. Not speaking. Just humming. A single note, over and over. The officers arrived, but before they even got to the porch, the humming stopped. When they went inside, the caller was standing in the kitchen, phone still to his ear, staring at the wall. They swept the whole house. Found nothing. I didn't check the dash cam that night. I didn't want to, because I already knew what I'd see. But I couldn't shake the feeling. If the camera could see them and the officers couldn't, then maybe it wasn't just his house they were in. Maybe they were here too, duh. I thought I'd be able to forget about it. About her. The thing is, with this job, you hear voices every day. People in pain. People scared. People lying. You learn how to let them all go when you hang up. You have to. But I couldn't hang her up. It's been weeks since that night with the man in the yard. Since the dash cam footage. Since we saw her standing right behind him. I kept telling myself it was just some messed up trick of the light, or bad video compression, or even some guy's sick idea of a prank. But then the calls started coming in again. The first one wasn't even in our county. It was patched through by mistake. An older woman. Soft, fragile voice, almost whispering. She said there was someone outside her window. Now, that's not unusual. Happens all the time. Usually it's a neighbor, a drunk, a deer. But something in the way she said it. I knew before she even described her. The woman in the yard. Only this time, she wasn't in a yard. She's standing in my flower bed, the caller said. Right under the kitchen window. She's looking at me. I asked her if the person was moving. No. If she was saying anything. No. I could hear the clock ticking in her kitchen over the phone. The way she kept pausing, like she was afraid if she talked too loud, the thing outside would hear her. And then she whispered something that made my stomach drop. She's smiling now. I didn't want to ask, but I had to. What does she look like? The caller's voice cracked. She's pale. So pale she looks wrong. Like a candle you keep burning even after it should have melted away. And her hair. She stopped. I heard a sound, faint, like someone tapping on glass. Her hair's covering her face now, she said. But she's still smiling. I can tell. The line went dead a few minutes later. Not because she hung up, because she screamed. We dispatched units. When they got there, nothing. Just muddy footprints in the flower bed. But here's the part that still keeps me awake. The footprints didn't lead to the road. They led straight into the wall of the house. The next time, the call came from a guy in the next town over. He sounded drunk at first, slurring, but then I realized it wasn't alcohol. It was fear. He said he'd been watching TV when he caught a reflection in the screen. Not his own. A woman's face. White. Expressionless. Right behind him. He spun around, but there was no one there. Just the living room window. Except now the face was there instead, on the other side of the glass. I thought it was a mask, he said. Like one of those Halloween ones. But she blinked. He ran to the door, but she didn't move. Didn't chase him. Didn't try to get inside. She just stood there, he told me. Like she was waiting for something. Like she knew I'd come back. And then, the part one can't shake. When the deputies got there, they did their usual, check the yard, the neighbors, the security cams. Only one camera had caught anything. The one inside his living room. It showed the man sitting on his couch, watching TV. And for one frame, one single frame, there was a pale figure standing in the middle of the room, in front of the window, and the man on the couch didn't even react. By now, the other dispatchers were starting to joke about it. She's on tour, one of them said. Hope she comes by here, I'll wave. Another laughed. But I didn't laugh, because every caller described her the same way. The stillness, the pale skin, the hair that sometimes covered her face and sometimes didn't, and that horrible, unnatural smile. I started keeping a notebook. Dates, times, towns, and one thing became clear fast. She was getting closer. 2 nights ago, the call came from a trailer park just outside our county line. A young mother. Sounded like she was crying before she even said hello. She told me she'd gone to check on her baby, and when she walked past the living room, she saw someone outside. A woman, standing in the middle of the yard, facing the window. The caller tried to describe her, but her voice kept shaking. She said the woman's face looked stretched, like it didn't fit right on her skull, like the skin was borrowed. And then she said something that made my skin crawl. She's holding something. I asked her what. She said she didn't know, but it was small, and it was swaying side to side like a pendulum. I could hear her baby crying in the background. The woman whispered, "She's getting closer." I told her to stay on the line, that help was on the way. But the baby's cries got louder. And then, over the sound of them, I heard a soft, deliberate tapping. Not on the window this time. On the phone, like someone was tapping the receiver from the other side. And then the line went silent. When deputies arrived, the baby was fine. The mother was gone. The only thing they found was her phone, lying on the floor in the hallway. And next to it, a single, wet footprint. I don't tell the others everything I hear. Sometimes, when I'm on break, I think about those calls. How they're all different people, different towns, but the same woman. And how, in every case, she never moves unless you're not looking. The idea that she could be in one place, and then, without walking, without crossing the space between, be somewhere else entirely. It's like she's not in the world the way we are. The thought makes my hands shake if I sit with it too long. But there's one thing worse. One thing I've been trying not to think about. What if she's not moving closer to a place? What if she's moving closer to a person? What if that person is me? Last night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the notebook, about the map I'd started marking with pins for every sighting. She's been in the north part of the county, then the center, then the southern edge. And now, the last 3 calls have been from within 20 miles of my own street. I tried to tell myself I was imagining it. But then, around 3 a.m., the phone rang. It was from a number I didn't recognize. I almost didn't answer. When I did, there was no hello, just breathing. Slow, steady, too steady to be normal. And then a voice I didn't recognize said my name. Not the way friends say it, not the way strangers guess it. It was the way I say it to myself when I'm alone. I didn't speak, and after a moment, the voice whispered, "Do you see me?" I hung up. I didn't sleep after that. And when the sun came up, I went to the kitchen for coffee. That's when I saw it, in a glass of the coffee pot. A reflection, not mine, that I had just come off the longest shift of my life. Or at least, I thought it was the longest. Turns out that was still ahead of me. The last call I'd handled before heading home was about her again. Different town this time. Different voice on the line. Same description. A woman. Long black hair, soaked like she just stepped out of a lake. Skin pale enough to reflect headlights. Eyes dark enough to swallow them. Just standing outside someone's window. Not moving. Not speaking. By now, the calls had a rhythm. Caller breathless. Voice trembling. Me trying to keep them calm while asking questions I already knew the answers to. Where is she standing? What is she doing? Has she moved? The answer was always no. She never moved. This time, though, the line had gone dead mid-sentence. No scream. No struggle. Just a click like they'd hung up. The officer dispatched got there 5 minutes later. The yard was empty, like it always was. I clocked out just after midnight. Drove home through streets that felt quieter than they should. The kind of quiet where you start checking your rearview mirror too often. Where the shadows between the streetlights looked too deep. I kept telling myself I was fine. She wasn't real. She was just some messed up coincidence that had grown into a local ghost story. By the time I parked outside my apartment building, I had almost convinced myself I believed that. Almost. It was 12:41 a.m. when my work phone buzzed. That phone is not supposed to ring after I clock out. Not unless something's wrong. I pulled it out, thumb hovering over the screen, half expecting it to be a text from my supervisor. It wasn't. No name. No number. Just unknown sender. The message had no words. Just an image. It took me a second to even understand what I was looking at. The street. My street. I could see the row of dim streetlights, the parked cars, the faded white lines on the asphalt. And there, right there in the center of the frame, was her, the woman, standing perfectly still under the yellow glow of the streetlight. Not across town, not in another county, not on the other end of a phone call. Here, I felt my hands go numb. The photo wasn't taken from the street. It was taken from my level behind glass. From inside a building. My building. I whipped my head up, heart hammering so hard I could hear in my ears. The street outside looked empty. No one under the light. No long black hair. No pale skin. But the photo had been taken less than a minute ago. I zoomed in, my fingers trembling so badly I could barely keep the screen steady. The closer I got, the more wrong her face looked. Not just pale, blurred, like the camera had tried to focus on her, but the lens couldn't decide where she ended and the shadows began. Her eyes were the only thing sharp, wide, black, and I swear they were looking directly at the camera, at whoever had taken the picture, at me. I stood there in my car, the door half open, listening. The wind rattled a loose street sign at the corner. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked twice and then stopped. I couldn't decide if I should go inside or not. My apartment was on the 3rd floor into the hall. Windows facing the street, which meant someone had been in my building, in my hallway, close enough to my door to take that picture. I didn't want to go in, but I also didn't want to be out here. Because if she wasn't in the street anymore, where is she? I told myself I was being stupid. I climbed the stairs fast, my footsteps echoing too loudly in the narrow stairwell. Every shadow felt like it shifted when I passed. When I reached my floor, I slowed. The hall was empty. Too empty. The light above my door flickered once, then steadied. I unlocked my door and slipped inside, locking it behind me with a speed I didn't know I had. The first thing I did was check the peephole. The hall was still empty. I set my work phone down on the kitchen counter and grabbed my personal one. I thought about calling someone, anyone, but what would I say? That I got a creepy picture from an unknown number? That a maybe imaginary woman might be outside? They'd tell me to sleep, to stop letting those calls get to me. I tried to distract myself. Made tea I didn't drink. Turned on the TV for background noise, but couldn't focus on the words. Every so often, I'd glance at the work phone on the counter. The screen stayed dark. It wasn't until 1:17 a.m. that it buzzed again. Same thing. Unknown sender. My stomach turned before I even opened it. This photo was closer. Still my street, still under the yellow streetlight. But now she was standing directly across from my building. Closer to the camera. Closer to me. I looked out the window. Nothing. Just the empty road, the parked cars, the same flickering light. My hands were sweating so badly, I nearly dropped the phone. I hit reply without thinking. Who is this? 3 dots appeared. Typing. Then nothing. The dots vanished. No answer came. At 1:24 a.m., another buzz. This time, I didn't want to open it. I did anyway. She was standing right outside the front door to my building. Head tilted slightly, hair hanging in damp strands that stuck to her cheek. Her mouth was open now. Not wide, just enough to make me think she was breathing. The glass in the photo reflected something faint behind her. A shape in the darkness of the parking lot. I leaned closer to the screen, tried to make it out. That's when a knock came. It wasn't loud, just 2 slow taps on my door. I froze. The TV whispered behind me, voices muffled. The fridge hummed. Somewhere outside, a car passed with a low rumble. But at my door, silence. I backed away, keeping my eyes on the peephole. For a full minute, I didn't move. Then, slowly, I leaned forward. The hall was empty. No one there. I let out a shaky breath, pressed my forehead to the door. That's when the work phone buzzed again. This one wasn't taken from the street. It wasn't taken from outside the building. It was taken from inside my apartment. I could see my couch, my coffee table, the blanket draped over the armrest. And behind it all, standing just at the edge of the frame, her, closer than she'd ever been. So close I could see the strands of wet hair clinging to her lips. So close I could see that her eyes weren't just black, they were empty. Hollow. I dropped the phone. It hit the floor face down. I didn't pick it up again. I ran. Out the door, down the hall, down the stairs 2 at a time. I didn't care that I was barefoot. Didn't care that I'd left my keys, my wallet, everything. I hit the cold night air and kept running until my lungs burned. Didn't stop until I was standing under the harsh lights of the all-night gas station 3 blocks away. The cashier gave me a weird look as I came in, shaking, out of breath. I told him I just needed to stay there for a bit, that someone was following me. He offered to call the police. I didn't know what to say. What was I supposed to tell them? That a woman who may not exist had somehow been in my apartment? That she'd been sending me pictures the whole time? I stayed at that gas station until sunrise. Then I went back. The front door to my building was locked. My apartment door was locked, too. Nothing inside was out of place. No signs of a break-in. The work phone was still on the floor where I dropped it. When I picked it up, the screen was blank. No messages. No photos. Not even the earlier ones. Like they'd never been sent. I didn't sleep that night. Or the next. And I keep thinking about that last picture. Not the woman. Not the hair or the eyes or the way she stood. But the angle. It was taken from a little higher than my head. Like whoever or whatever was holding the camera had been leaning over me while I sat on my couch. Which means she wasn't just in my apartment. She was standing right behind me. That IT started the way most strange nights do, with a call that didn't sound right from the very first word. The line clicked open, and all I heard at first was a man's ragged breathing, fast and uneven, like he'd been running. Then, in a voice that cracked hard on the first syllable, he said, "Hello? Hello, someone's out here." I remember glancing up at the wall clock. It was 2:13 a.m. The room was quiet except for the low hum of the dispatch monitors and the steady ticking of the clock. Nights are usually slow in our county. Too slow. "Sir, this is county dispatch," I said, keeping my voice even. "Can you tell me your address?" There was a pause. I could hear a faint wind in the background, the kind that moves dry leaves over dirt. Then his voice came back, Tighter, lower. Power's out. Whole street's black. I can't. I can't see my driveway anymore. Okay, I said, already opening the location log. Sir, I still need your address. Are you hurt? He gave it, and I recognized the area immediately. County Line Road, a stretch of rural houses barely clinging to the edge of our jurisdiction. I've been out there once as a ride-along years ago. I remembered miles of nothing but empty road and fields, and those wide, old houses that sat far off the street. What's your name? I asked. Peter, he said quickly. Listen, there's someone out there. Do you see them? There was a long hesitation. Then, in almost a whisper, they're moving, but they're not walking right. Something about the way he said that pulled my attention harder. I turned slightly in my chair, leaning closer to the headset mic. Not walking right? Can you explain? It's like he trailed off. I heard him swallow. Like shadows, but too black. There. The line went quiet. Peter, are you still with me? I could hear him breathing, heavier now. They're closer. I swear to God, they're closer now. They weren't that close when I called. The hairs on my arms prickled. Peter, stay inside. Lock your doors. Can you do that? Already did, he said. Lights won't come on. Not even my flashlight. It's dead. I started to type up the call for patrol units, but when I glanced at the signal strength on my screen for his location, there was nothing. No service ping, no GPS lock. The system just said, signal lost. Peter, I'm sending officers your way. I told him, even though I couldn't technically confirm his location. Stay on the line. They're in my yard, he said suddenly, voice shaking now. I can't see their faces. It's like they don't have any. I kept my tone steady, but my heart was beating harder. Are they saying anything? Making any noise? There was a sound on the line then, not quite wind, not quite static. It had a low, irregular pulse to it, like someone breathing but too slow and wet. They're just standing, he whispered. One's at the kitchen window. Oh my God. His words stopped mid-sentence, and there was a loud clatter like something hitting the floor. I sat straighter in my chair, staring at the screen. Peter? Peter, talk to me. There was movement, a shuffle, the creak of a wooden floor. Then nothing but his breathing again, shallow and rapid. I think they know I'm on the phone, he said. I could feel the skin on the back of my neck tightening. Do not go near them, Peter. Stay where you are. A beat of silence. Then, in a voice so faint I almost missed it. They're inside. I muted my mic and called for units over the radio, but the reply I got made my stomach drop. Dispatch. We're trying to reach County Line, but all the street lights are out. Whole area's pitch. Roads are blocked from that windstorm last week. It'll take a while. I unmuted. Peter, I've got deputies en route. Can you lock yourself in a room? He didn't answer right away. Then, there's something wrong with the glass. What glass? My windows. It's like I can't see out anymore. It's just black. Like they put something over it. I checked the clock again. Only 3 minutes had passed since the call started. It felt like longer. Peter, are you armed? No, he said, voice flat now. Doesn't matter. I didn't like how calm he sounded all of a sudden. People don't just shift like that unless they've given up. Peter, listen to me. You're going to be okay. Just stay hidden and keep talking to me. There was a faint scraping sound in the background then, like fingernails on wood. They're at the door to the room, he said. My mouth went dry. Stay quiet, Peter. Don't. The sound came through the line. 3 slow knocks. Do you hear that? He whispered. Yes. It's not a hand, he said. The knocks came again. They're not knocking right. I could hear something else behind his words. That strange, wet breathing sound again, closer now, almost touching the mic. Then, without warning, the line cut. I stared at the dead signal icon, willing it to reconnect. It didn't. I tried calling back twice. Straight to a dead tone. By the time patrol finally made it down County Line, the house was dark and empty. No sign of Peter. No sign of a break-in. No footprints in the mud. The report said it looked like nobody had lived there for years. But I heard him. I know I heard him. And the worst part? When they searched the house, they found his phone on the kitchen table. The call log showed our conversation. But the timestamp wasn't 2:13 a.m. It was from 3 nights ago that I didn't even finish logging the first call before the next one came in. Same area. Same blackout. The man on the other end was breathing like he'd run a mile, but his voice was shaking so hard it didn't sound like he had the air for it. "They're talking," he said. "Who's talking, sir?" "I don't know. I can't see them. No one can. It's—" He stopped, like he was listening to something else. "You can't see anything out here tonight. It's like the dark's thicker. My flashlight, it's not reaching." I asked him to describe what he was hearing, and he whispered it like a confession. "Voices. Close. Like they're leaning in right next to your ear. But when you turn, there's nothing." Before I could get more, the line cut out. No click. No static. Just gone. I stared at the phone for a second because it wasn't just what he'd said. It was how fast the call ended. Like something was on his end and didn't want him talking to me anymore. The phone rang again. Same area code. Different voice. This one was a woman, and she was crying. "They're outside," she kept saying. "They keep whispering my name." I told her to stay calm and keep talking to me, but she kept glancing away from the receiver like she was watching something move in the dark. "The light doesn't work," she said. "I try the porch. I try the kitchen. Nothing cuts it. It's like the dark is swallowing it before it goes anywhere." She sucked in a shaky breath. "Do you hear that?" she asked me. I told her I couldn't, but she swore she could hear whispering under my voice, like the sound was bleeding through the line. I thought maybe it was interference from the storm earlier, but there wasn't any storm, just the blackout. Then she screamed, and the phone went dead. I leaned back from the console, every hair on my arms standing up. This wasn't a coincidence. 2 calls like that, minutes apart, both describing the exact same thing. Light not working, voices whispering, too close. The 3rd call came before I could think about it more. This one wasn't crying. He wasn't whispering. He sounded flat, like he'd been awake too long. "They're in the field," he said. I asked what he meant. "They don't move like people," he said. "They lean forward, too far. Then they tilt their heads like they're listening. But there's no eyes. Just dark. I can't tell how many there are." I asked if he could get to his car, but he said no. His truck wouldn't start. And even if it did, they're between me and the road now. I asked if he could see them. Not see, just outline. Like the dark's thicker around them. Like it's bending. Then he said something I've thought about every night since. When they whisper, it's not in your ear. It's in your head. But it doesn't sound like your thoughts. He stopped. They know things. The line went dead. By now, I had my headset halfway off because my own phone, my personal cell, buzzed in my pocket. I shouldn't have checked it. I should have ignored it until the end of shift. But I didn't. It was a text from an unknown number. No words. Just a black image. I tapped it, thinking it didn't load right. But it wasn't blank. It was a photo of my street, taken from the middle of the road. And in the black, way in the center, there were shapes. Not people. Not quite. I dropped the phone. It hit the desk hard, but the vibration made the work phone ring again. Same area. The caller was whispering. At first, I thought it was another frightened woman, but after a few seconds, I realized it wasn't whispering at all. It was breathing, but in short, shallow pulls. I asked if they could speak. Nothing. Just the breathing. I asked if they were safe. Still nothing. And then, softly, a voice I swear was mine said, "You can hear them too, can't you?" I froze. I didn't answer. "Don't turn around," the voice said. The line cut. The workroom felt smaller suddenly, like the walls had pulled in. My skin prickled, not from cold, but from the awareness of space behind me. That invisible sense that something is closer than it should be. The phones didn't stop for the next hour. Some calls were frantic, begging for someone to come. Some were so quiet, I could barely make out the words. One man described watching his neighbor walk out into the field like she was following a voice. Said she never came back. Another swore the whispering had started inside his house now. One woman said her dog was barking at a corner of the living room, hackles raised, but she couldn't see anything. And then the barking stopped mid-breath, like it had been cut off. I told her to leave the house, but she said the door wouldn't open. Her last words to me were, "They're here. I think they've always been here." I didn't hear her hang up, just the sound of faint, low whispering until the line broke. At some point, I stopped writing full notes. My hand was shaking too much, and the ringing never stopped long enough to catch up. I remember glancing at the wall clock. It was still ticking, but the second hand looked slower than it should be. And in between calls, When the room went still for just a breath, I thought I heard it too. That faint sound, like someone leaning in close enough to feel the warmth of their breath, saying something I couldn't make out. Not outside, not over the phone. Here, I don't remember the exact moment I realized the night had gone quiet. It must have been somewhere between the last call and the steady hum of my headset. 1 minute, I had voices in my ear, ragged breathing, distant screaming, words slipping through like static. The next, there was just me in the dark. Not just the kind of dark you get when the power's out. This was heavier, thicker, like it wasn't just the absence of light, but the presence of something else. Something that wanted me blind. The clock on the dispatch wall had stopped at 2:17. Not frozen mid-tick like in a movie, just still. Like time itself had stalled, holding its breath. I sat there, staring at the glowing red second hand that refused to move, until a faint pop echoed in my headset. It wasn't a caller. It wasn't even a line tone. It was like the sound of someone flicking their tongue off the roof of their mouth, close enough that I almost felt it. That was when the phone rang. It didn't sound right. Too soft, like it was coming from under a blanket. I pressed the button anyway. "County Dispatch," I said. My voice didn't sound like my own. It came out too flat. No one answered. I thought maybe the line had dropped again. Then I heard it breathing. Slow. Measured. Almost like whoever it was didn't want to get caught. I said hello, again. Still nothing. Then a whisper, so faint I couldn't even tell if it was a man or a woman. "It's waiting." The line went dead. The power came back without warning. A single blinding flash as every fluorescent bulb overhead sputtered to life. For a second, my pupils burned from the shock of it. Everything was white, sharp-edged, too real. And then, I saw them. Not people. Not in the way you'd expect. They were shapes. Solid, but not solid. Like shadows that had gotten tired of clinging to walls and decided to step forward. They stood in the corners of the room, in the middle of the hall, at the edges of my vision. Each one was frozen mid-step. One had its arms stretched toward my chair, fingers just inches from my shoulder. Another stood behind the glass of the dispatch door, its face, or what I thought was its face, pressed so close I could see the faint ripple in whatever it was made of. The room hummed with the sound of every appliance coming back to life. The coffee maker clicked. The soda machine rattled. The HVAC groaned. But all I could hear was the blood in my ears. I didn't move at first. I thought maybe if I didn't, they wouldn't either. Then the light above me flickered. Just once. But it was enough. Every frozen figure turned its head toward me. Not all at once, like some choreographed movement, but one after another. Like they were letting me feel the weight of each stare. I don't know how long the light stayed on. It couldn't have been more than a minute. But when they went out, it was instant. No fading. No warning. Just a snap, and I was blind again. The room felt bigger in the dark. Like the walls had pulled back to make space for something else. That's when the phones lit up. 3 lines rang at once. All from different numbers. All from the same area, County Line Road. I took the first call. It was a man's voice, low and shaking. "They're closer now," he whispered. Don't make noise." I wanted to tell him to hang on, that we'd send help, but my throat felt locked. It didn't matter anyway. He hung up. The second line was already flashing. This time it was a woman. I could hear wind in the background, but not the kind that comes through trees. It was hollow, tunnel-like, like she was calling from somewhere underground. "They stop when the lights are on," she said, her words tumbling over each other. "But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because the lights never stay." She gasped, and for a moment I thought she'd been cut off. But then she whispered, almost pleading, "You can hear them, can't you? Even now." Before I could answer, the third line rang. I switched over, expecting another voice. Instead, I got silence. Then a faint tapping. Not random. 3 taps, pause, 3 taps, pause, 3 taps. Over and over. I pulled the receiver away from my ear and stared at it. The sound didn't stop. It wasn't coming from the earpiece anymore. It was coming from inside the room. From the same corner where one of those frozen shadows had been. The blackout stretched on. No emergency crews came through on the radio. No chatter from the other dispatch stations. I started to think maybe the rest of the county was gone. Maybe I was the only one left to answer these calls. That if I just kept my eyes on the desk, I could pretend none of this was real. But then my headset crackled. A voice, quiet, almost kind. "Look, I did. The hallway was darker than it should have been, even without power. And at the far end, standing completely still, was one of them. Only now, it wasn't a vague shape. The light from the emergency exit sign traced its edges, revealing something I wish I could forget. It wasn't made of shadow. It wore shadow, like a skin. Underneath, I could see a shape that was almost human, but stretched too thin, the joints bending just slightly wrong. Its head tilted in a way that made my stomach twist. And then, with a slow, deliberate motion, it raised one hand and pointed. Not at me, at the wall clock. The second hand had started moving again. Somewhere outside, a transformer blew. The lights came back in a stuttering flash. Every figure I'd seen before was closer now. Much closer. One was crouched on the desk in front of me. Its face was so close to mine that I could see the faint, pulsing movement beneath its surface, like something alive was shifting inside. Its head twitched, and I swear I saw its mouth open. But instead of sound, light poured out, thin and bright and cold. I don't remember screaming. I don't even remember standing up. I just know that when the lights died again, I was no longer at the desk. I was standing in the hallway, facing the glass doors. And outside, under the faint silver glow of the moon breaking through the clouds, the road was lined with them. Hundreds, all facing me, all waiting for the dark to get deep enough. The calls haven't stopped since. They all say the same thing now, no matter who's speaking. The lights will come back one more time. They never say what happens after that. I'm not sure I want to know. I'd been awake for almost 24 hours when the last call came in. My eyes felt gritty, my head heavy, and every sound in the dispatch room seemed sharper, like someone had turned the world's volume up but kept the lights dim. It was just after 4 a.m. The storm had moved off hours ago, but the power grid in half the county was still dead. We'd been running on backup generators, the hum of them constant under everything, like a low, steady heartbeat I was starting to hate. The phones hadn't stopped. Not all emergencies, not even all real calls, sometimes just people needing another human voice in the dark. But that night, those weren't the calls that stuck with me. It was the other ones. The ones from that stretch of road near Miller's Creek, where the blackout was thickest. The place where flashlights didn't seem to work, and people whispered about shapes moving in the dark. I'd heard it from a dozen different voices by now. Men, women, even a teenager with a voice cracking mid-sentence, saying they could hear whispers, saying the air felt thick, saying they were seeing shadows that didn't match anything solid. And each time, I tried to convince myself it was fear, paranoia, tricks of the night. But then this man called. His voice came in ragged at first, the line crackling like the signal itself was being chewed apart. For a moment, I thought he might hang up before I even got his location. "This is County Dispatch," I said, keeping my voice steady the way they train us. "What's your emergency?" Silence. And then, faint but clear enough, I heard his breath. Shaky, wet, not the kind of breathing someone makes when they've been running, more like he was trying not to cry. I repeated the question. "I'm at." He trailed off, then coughed, like the words had caught in his throat. "You know where?" I didn't, but my stomach tightened anyway because the way he said it, it was like he knew I'd been hearing the same thing all night. Like he assumed I'd already pictured exactly where he was standing. I typed as he gave me a landmark. Miller's Creek. Of course. "All right," I said. "Are you inside or outside right now?" "Inside," he whispered. "For now." Something in my chest twitched. That word, "for now," felt like it didn't belong in normal conversation. I could hear faint sounds behind him, but I couldn't place them. Not the normal home noises. No fridge hum, no clock ticking. It almost sounded like movement. "Sir, I need you to stay calm," I said, trying to keep my own voice from thinning. "Can you tell me what's happening?" His breathing slowed, but not in a way that made me think he was calmer. More like he was trying to make it quiet enough so something else couldn't hear him. "They're in the yard," he murmured. I swallowed. "Who is?" Another pause. Then, "They're not people." I felt a chill crawl down my arms. I told myself to keep him talking, keep him focused until a deputy could get there. I flagged the location and routed it over the radio, my free hand moving on instinct while the rest of me felt frozen. "What do they look like?" I asked, but he didn't answer right away. Instead, I heard that faint, horrible sound again, like fabric brushing against fabric, slow and deliberate, somewhere behind his voice. "They're wrong," he said finally. "Like shadows, but not from me. Not from anything. And they move when I don't." I wanted to tell him it was just the dark playing tricks, that the mind can make monsters when you stare too long into nothing. But something in my gut told me not to insult him with that. "They're whispering now," he added softly. I adjusted the headset, thinking maybe the noise I'd been straining to make out was exactly that, whispers, layered on whispers, low enough to feel instead of hear. "Can you make out what they're saying?" Another breath. "They're talking about me." That landed in my mind like a stone breaking ice. The dispatcher next to me glanced over. I must have looked pale because she mouthed, "You okay?" I didn't answer. "Sir," I said quietly, "I've got help coming your way. I just need you to—" "They're closer now," he interrupted. The way he said it, it wasn't fear in his tone anymore. It was resignation, like he'd been waiting for this to happen. I checked the unit status board. The nearest deputy was still a few minutes out. "Too far." "Listen to me," I said firmly. "Lock your doors. Stay away from windows. Find a room you can. They don't care about doors." I froze. "They move different in the dark," he continued, almost like he was telling me a secret. "Faster. I only see them when I blink. And when I do, they're always closer." Something in the phone line shifted. The static swelled, eating at the edges of his voice. I thought we'd lost the call. But then, in the clearest tone of the night, he said the last words I would ever hear from him. "They're already inside." And then nothing. No click. No dial tone. Just silence. A silence so complete it felt like the room had stopped breathing. I kept the headset pressed to my ear longer than I should have, hoping for the sound of him picking back up, a cough, even a scream. Something. But there was only the hum of the generator, faint and far away. I pinged the line. No answer. Tried again. Still nothing. By the time the deputy reached the location, the house was empty. Front door wide open. Lights dead. Inside, there were no signs of struggle. No overturned furniture. No drops of blood. Just dust on the floor, disturbed in strange, looping patterns. The deputy radioed in that the place smelled faintly of burnt wires, though the power hadn't been on in hours. We logged it as an unresolved welfare check. That's the kind of phrase that looks neat on paper, but feels like a weight in your chest. The other calls from Miller's Creek slowed after that. Not because whatever it was stopped, but because the people stopped calling. Days later, I drove past that stretch of road on my way home. It was early evening, the sun low but still bright enough to see clearly. I told myself I was just curious. But when I slowed the car near his house, I saw something that made me press harder on the gas without thinking. In the corner of an upstairs window, just for a second, I thought I saw a shadow leaning forward like it was watching me go. And in that moment, I swear I heard something faint, even over the hum of my engine. Like whispers, layered on whispers, low enough to feel instead of hear that I've been working night shifts for almost 6 years now. And if there's one thing I've learned about 911 calls, it's this: you start to recognize people by the way they breathe. I'm not exaggerating. Before you even hear the words, you can feel the person on the other end of the line. The fast, shaky exhales of someone hiding from something in their house. The clipped, controlled breaths of someone trying not to panic in front of their kids. The shallow, ragged gasps when someone's bleeding out and trying to keep it together. It's one of those details you don't realize you're learning until one night you catch yourself thinking, "Oh, this guy's standing outside, probably in the cold, probably wearing a jacket that's not zipped." You just know. So that's why the call last Thursday stopped me cold before I even processed the words. It was my breathing and my voice. The phone rang at 2:14 a.m. Not the usual time for the loud chaos of bar fights or domestic disputes. This was the quieter part of the night, when the roads are empty and the town is in that strange, dreamlike state between too late and too early. I answer like always, headset snug, hands on the keyboard. 911, what's your emergency? For a moment, there was only silence. Not dead air, there was breathing. Slow, even, familiar. And then my own voice said, "I'm the real one." I froze. I didn't mean I thought it sounded like me. I mean it was me. The same tone, the same cadence. Even the slight rasp I get when my throat's been dry for hours. It wasn't a recording. It wasn't distorted. It was like I was on both ends of the line. I tried to keep my voice steady. Sir, can you repeat that? The breathing on the other end didn't change. And then my voice, again, spoke quieter now. You're not safe there. I looked around the dispatch room like I was going to catch someone playing a prank. But it was just me and Brenda that night. She was halfway across the room, hunched over her own desk, eyes glued to a call about a car accident on Route 19. My headset cord stretched just far enough for me to glance behind the desk. No wires, no secondary phone, nothing. Can you tell me your name? I asked, already typing into the system to see if the caller ID would give me something. The box stayed empty. No number, no location, no trace at all. My voice came again, low, almost pleading. They know you're alone. A ripple of something cold went down my spine. I swallowed hard. Who knows I'm alone? This time there was a pause. I could hear breathing, my breathing, but it was slower now, deeper, like the person was focusing on each inhale, each exhale. There in the walls, my voice said. I don't know how to describe the way it hit me. Not like a threat, not even like a warning. More like a statement of fact. Something certain. I felt my throat tighten. Who's in the walls? Silence. I pressed my headset closer, straining for any sound. A faint click, then a hollow crackle, and then, they're moving. The line went dead. No static fade. No beep. Just gone. I sat there staring at the call screen. I replayed the voice in my head, trying to find some hint of distortion, something mechanical. But there was nothing. It wasn't a recording. It was me, down to the little inflection I use when I'm trying to calm someone down. Brenda's voice made me flinch. Everything okay over there? I turned in my chair, my mouth open to answer, but nothing came out. Yeah, I finally said, forcing a smile. Weird prank call. She gave me a distracted nod and went back to her report. I didn't tell her what I'd heard. I don't know why. For the rest of the shift, I kept expecting the call to come back, to hear my own voice again. Every ring made my stomach knot, but it was just the usual drunk drivers, noise complaints, a guy whose neighbor's dog looked at him funny. I left at sunrise feeling like my head was packed with static. Sleep didn't help. Neither did coffee. I kept hearing that voice in my head, those exact words. I'm the real one. The next night, I told myself it was probably some kind of phone glitch, that maybe my voice had gotten looped back through the system somehow. But that doesn't explain what it said, and it definitely doesn't explain what happened next. It was just after midnight when the call came in. Same thing. No number, no location, just dead space for a few seconds, and then me. I don't have long, my voice said. My hands tightened on the desk. Who is this? You know who I am. I don't, I said, but my voice cracked on the word. You do, it said calm. You've always known. I swallowed hard. What do you want? The breathing on the other end hitched, almost like a laugh. Then slower. To switch. My chest felt tight. Switch what? There was a long pause. I could hear faint noises in the background now, soft, irregular tapping, like knuckles brushing along a wall. Places, it said. I glanced at the corners of the dispatch room, at the shadowed spaces between the cabinets and the ceiling. I don't know why. What are you talking about? I asked. This time, my voice on the line wasn't calm. It was trembling. Please. Before the line went dead again. I didn't log the call. I know I should have. That's protocol. Every call gets recorded, tagged, and stored, even the prank ones. But I just sat there, staring at the blank screen, feeling like the walls around me were listening. I couldn't shake the tapping sound. When my shift ended, I walked out to the parking lot, and for a moment I swear I heard footsteps behind me, perfectly in sync with mine, then stopping when I stopped. I didn't turn around. The third call came 2 nights later. It was raining hard. Brenda had called out sick, so I was alone. I almost didn't answer when the line lit up, but my hand moved before my brain caught up. 911, what's your emergency? This time, there was no pause. My voice, sharp, urgent, came through immediately. They're here. My heart jumped. Who's here? The breathing was faster now, almost panicked. They're in the room with me. I can't see them, but I can hear them. I gripped the mic. Where are you? Silence. Then, barely audible. You're in my chair. My skin went cold. What? I'm looking at you, the voice said. I turned slowly in my seat, scanning the empty dispatch room. Just me. The monitors. the humming of the fluorescent lights. Where? I asked. The voice let out a shaky breath. Behind a glass. I glanced toward the window that looked out into the dark hallway. It reflected me, the room, the soft glow of the monitors. But for a split second, so quick I almost convinced myself I imagined it. I thought I saw another reflection behind mine. Same headset, same uniform, same face. And then the line cut out. I didn't tell anyone about that call either, because I knew they wouldn't hear what I heard. I thought it was over after that first night. That voice, the one that sounded like mine. I didn't tell anyone the truth. Not the whole truth, anyway. I just said it was a glitch. A weird echo on the line. Something technical. I thought if I didn't talk about it, it would just fade. But it didn't. 3 nights later, it happened again. And this time, other people heard it too. The shift had been dead quiet. It was just me, Harper, and Miguel on dispatch. Harper was on her second energy drink, drumming her nails on the desk. Miguel was doing that thing where he leans back in his chair and balances it on 2 legs, staring up at the ceiling like he's counting invisible dots. I've been watching the wall clock, the second hand dragging its way past midnight, when the call came in. Line 3 lit up. Unknown number. I hit the button without thinking. 911, what's your emergency? And then my voice said, do not send them to Cedar and 5th. It's a trap. I froze. The same tone, same pace. It was like listening to a recording I didn't remember making, except there was breath in it. Heat. Urgency. Who is this? I asked. You know who this is? The voice said, and it smiled when it said it. I could hear it in the words, like a shadow under the syllables. Then spoke again, not to me, but over me. There's an officer down at Cedar and 5th. Send backup. Now. I almost dropped the phone, because I wasn't the one who said that last part. But it came through my headset. What the hell? I whispered. Harper leaned over her console. You okay? Before I could answer, Miguel's console lit up too. Different line. Different caller. He picked it up. 911, what's your emergency? Then he shot me this sharp look. His eyebrows pinched together like he'd just seen something wrong. Wait, hold on. Who is this? He said. And then Harper's line rang. She answered, and her face drained to paper white. Guy, she said, why do I have you on my line? Telling me something different. The room was too small for the noise that followed. 3 different lines. 3 different versions of my voice. Mine, the real mine, was speaking in a line 3, trying to keep up, trying to untangle whatever was happening. But Harper was hearing another me say, send every available unit. The suspect is armed. And Miguel was hearing another me say, do not engage. Hold all units. Stay away from Cedar and 5th. Both instructions came through at the same time. Both in my voice. I thought I was losing it. Then I heard the officers on the radio. Dispatch. Clarify. Are we holding or advancing? We've got conflicting orders. My heart slammed against my ribs. Because now it wasn't just in here. It was out there. I mashed the transmit button. All units, this is dispatch 1 me. Ignore all other instructions. Hold position until I confirm. And then, almost instantly, the other voice came through the same channel. No. Move in. They're escaping now. It overlapped with me. It was perfectly timed, like we were talking over each other, but also syncing. I yanked off my headset, but the sound didn't stop. It was coming from Harper's console now. From Miguel's. From the overhead speakers. It was everywhere. Harper swore under her breath. What the hell is going on? She was gripping her desk so hard her knuckles went white. Miguel was flipping through the call logs, muttering to himself. This isn't possible. This isn't possible. I didn't want to say it, but it came out anyway. It's the same voice from the other night. Harper looked at me, wide-eyed. The one you didn't tell us about? My mouth went dry. Yeah. The calls wouldn't stop. Every time we hung up, another line lit up. Another me, giving orders. Sometimes it was close to what I would say. Other times it was the exact opposite. One call told Officer Daniels to check the alley. Another told him to stay inside his cruiser. Both in my voice. The worst part? They didn't just sound like me. They thought like me. They used the same phrases I use without realizing. The same way I pause when I'm unsure. The same way I drag out certain words when I'm thinking. It was like someone had peeled my voice out of my throat and was wearing it like clothing. Then something happened that made my stomach flip. One of the voices laughed. Not a big laugh. Just this short, sharp exhale. But I remembered exactly when I'd made that sound before. 2 weeks ago, after Harper spilled coffee on her keyboard. I'd laughed the exact same way. It wasn't copying me from tonight. It was copying me from memory. Out in the field, things are breaking down. The officers didn't know which orders to follow. 2 units nearly collided because one version of me told them to take the same street from opposite directions. The radio chatter was a mess. Dispatch, repeat last. Negative, disregard. Who just told us to? Was that you or? My head was spinning. I wanted to shut everything down, but it felt like if I cut the lines, whatever this was might get worse. Then the voice, the other me, came back on my own headset, quiet this time. Why are you fighting me? It asked. My mouth went dry. What do you want? To help, it said. I've been helping. I didn't know what to say, because part of me wondered if that was true. What if it was helping? What if it knew something I didn't? But then Harper's screen lit up with an urgent call from Officer Daniel's unit. Gunfire in the background. Daniel's yelling. We walked right into it. Who the hell told us to? The line cut out. The air went out of the room. We all just stared at each other. The voice came back. Soft. Almost gentle. That wasn't me. We pulled the call records after. Every single other me call was listed under the exact same number. Unknown. No location. No trace. It shouldn't have been possible for 3 different people to hear 3 different calls from the same source at the same time. But it happened, and we all heard it. Harper refuses to sit next to me now. Miguel won't even answer a line if it lights up for me. And the worst part? Tonight, on my way in, I passed the break room. I heard Harper and Miguel talking. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, but they weren't whispering. They weren't talking about me. They were talking to me. At least, it sounded like me. My own voice was in there, low and casual, asking Miguel how his weekend went, laughing at something Harper said, the kind of easy laugh I haven't had in weeks. When I stepped inside, the talking stopped. They just stared at me, like they were trying to figure out which one I was. And honestly, so was that I didn't want to answer it. That phone, that stupid black desk phone with its cracked plastic casing and the faint smell of burned dust that never seemed to go away. It was 2 hours into my night shift, and I'd been staring at the blinking light for almost a full minute before I finally picked it up. Normally, my hand moves without thinking, years of muscle memory. But lately, it's been different. Since the first call. I don't know if it's the silence before the voice, or the sound of my own breathing coming back at me like a mirror, but every time I touch that phone now, I feel like I'm leaning over the edge of something deep, something bottomless. I press the button. 911. What's your emergency? The answer didn't come right away. Just a breath. Steady, slow. Then, oh, thank God. You're here. The voice, it wasn't mine this time. Not exactly. It was close, though. Same rhythm, same weight on certain words, but softer. More tired. Like me, but after months of no sleep. Who is this? I asked. I don't know your name, she said. But you have my job. I froze, glancing at the other workstations in the room. A couple of my coworkers were busy with calls, their faces lit by their monitors. No one was looking at me. What do you mean? I have your job. You're sitting in my chair, she said, and her voice cracked. It's my shift. I've been here for, I don't know how long. Weeks? Months? I can't leave. It never ends. The sun never comes up. I want to hang up right there. I could have said it was a prank. But there was something in her tone. Not the way prank callers laugh under their breath or stretch a word too long. No, this sounded like someone clinging to the last thread of their sanity. What's your location? I asked, keeping my voice even. The station, she said quickly, almost angrily. The same place you are? But it's wrong. The windows are black. I can't see outside. And there's only one light. Over my desk. It's so bright it hurts to look at, but I can't turn it off. I can't leave my post. If I try, the phone rings, and it's you. I felt my skin crawl. Me? I whispered. Yes, she said. But not you. You sound different on that line. Harsher. Sometimes you're crying. Sometimes you're angry. Sometimes you tell me things. What kind of things? She hesitated. I could hear her shifting like the creak of an old chair. Things about calls I'm about to get. About the people on them. And then they happen exactly the way you said. My stomach tightened. I thought about the first echo call I'd gotten, about the way it had matched my own voice, word for word. What if it wasn't some glitch or prank? What if? What's your name? I asked. She let out a shaky laugh. You wouldn't believe me. Try me. It's yours, she said. Your name, your ID number, your badge. I have it all right here, in front of me. I was gripping the receiver so hard my fingers ached. She kept talking, faster now, like she was afraid I'd hang up. I tried to log off the system once. It didn't work. It just reset the timer back to 0 and the shift started over. Same calls, same voices, same emergencies, over and over. My eyes flicked to the digital clock on the wall. 10:47 p.m. It was always slow at this time. But a sick thought crept in. What if one night just stopped moving? What do you want from me? I asked. She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was so small I almost didn't hear it. Get me out. That night, I didn't tell anyone about the call. I told myself it was because I didn't want to sound crazy, but the truth was, I was afraid that saying it out loud would make it real. But she called again. The next time was 3 nights later. Same number. Same slight pause before speaking. It's getting worse, she said without even greeting me. The lights flicker now. When they go out, I can hear something in the room. Breathing. Moving. What happens when they come back on? It's closer. I swallowed hard, keeping my eyes on my own bright, noisy room. My coworkers were here. My chair was warm from my own body heat. My coffee was still steaming. I told myself there was no way I could be in 2 places at once. But her voice. Do you have a clock there? I asked. Yes, she said. It stuck at 10:47. I felt my throat close. That was the same time I'd checked during her first call. Listen to me, I said, my own voice sounding strange in my ears. You're not real. You're some kind of recording or, I don't know, but you're not me. Silence. Then a low, almost mocking whisper. I didn't believe it either. I stopped sleeping after that. Not fully. I'd drift for an hour, then jerk awake convinced my phone was ringing. Sometimes it was. Sometimes it wasn't. Every night, I'd sit down at my station and wait for the call. Sometimes she wouldn't say much, just breathe or mutter half sentences like she was talking in her sleep. Other times she described the room again, and every time it got worse. Now, she said there were no other dispatchers there, just empty desks. And when she looked at the far end of the room, the darkness seemed to lean toward her. Once, she asked me if I could hear a sound on the line. I couldn't. She told me it was like a faint hum, but too low to be the lights. It's inside the walls, she whispered. I think it's talking, but not in words. I started to notice little overlaps. One night, she described a call she was about to get. A man trapped in his car, screaming about water filling the inside. 10 minutes later, I got that exact call. The same words, the same panic in his voice. It kept happening. And then one night, it went the other way. I took a call from a woman hiding in her bathroom, whispering about someone breaking in. As soon as I hung up, my phone rang. It was her. You just got that call, she said. Yes, I said slowly. I'm about to get it, she told me. In about 30 seconds. There's something sick about hearing your life replayed on someone else's time. I couldn't shake the feeling that one of us was ahead and one of us was behind. And if that was true, then maybe her future was my future. Maybe I'd end up where she was. 2 nights ago, I broke. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels like holding your breath. I knew she was going to call. I picked up before it even rang. I'm here, I said. She let out a sob. I found a door, she whispered. My chest tightened. In the dark. I asked. Yes. I didn't open it. I wanted to call you first. What do you think's behind it? Either a way out or nothing at all. Her voice broke again. If I go through and I don't come back, maybe you won't have to take my place. I didn't know what to say. Tell me what to do, she begged. I realized my hand was shaking so badly I could barely hold the receiver. And here's the thing that's been eating at me ever since. I told her to open it. The line went dead. She hasn't called since. But last night, when I walked into the station, my chair, it was still warm, and the clock on the wall, it was stuck at 10:47 that I don't remember falling asleep. Burr hearing her voice, my voice. She was calmer now. The panic that had been there all night was gone. And the way she spoke, it was like someone closing a book. A slow, final motion. You can rest now. That's what she said. And then the silence took me. When I opened my eyes, I was still at the dispatch desk. At least, that's what my brain told me at first. Same layout, same chair, same headset resting around my neck. Except it wasn't my desk. The station, it looked wrong. The lights were dim, like the bulbs had been burning for decades, and no one ever replaced them. The air was heavy and still, with that dry, stale weight that tells you no one's opened a door or window in years. The console in front of me was coated in a thin layer of dust. I brushed my hand across it, and the smear I left behind was the only sign of movement this place had probably seen in a long time. I turned to my chair. Every station, every seat, empty. The chairs weren't tucked in right. Some sat askew, like the people who'd been in them had left in a hurry. Years ago. Papers were scattered across the counters, yellowed at the edges. The clock on the wall ticked, but the second hand didn't move. It was frozen at 3:07 a.m. My first thought was, power outage? Maintenance drill? But the lights were still faintly humming. The monitors still glowed with a dull gray light, even though they showed no active lines, no maps, no incoming calls. Just that empty desktop background, the kind they give you when there's no network connection. I stood up. It was too quiet. Not just night shift quiet. No distant chatter from the radios. No muffled traffic through the walls. Not even the constant hum of the HVAC system. I went to the main door and pushed. It didn't budge. I pressed my face to the glass. On the other side was nothing. Not darkness. Not a hallway. Just nothing. Like the world had been scraped away, and beyond this building, there was only blank white space. I backed away so fast I bumped into a chair and nearly fell. That's when I heard it. A faint click, then a steady, rhythmic sound, tap, 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 coming from my headset. I picked it up with shaking hands. Hello. The line hissed softly, like it was breathing. Then, her voice. You're here now. I froze. It wasn't an echo of me anymore. It wasn't pretending to be me. The voice had the same tone, the same cadence, but something inside it had shifted. It was warmer, stronger, like it knew exactly what it was doing. It's all right, it said. I've got it from here. My throat felt tight. What do you mean? Silence. Then a low chuckle, barely audible. You worked hard. You stayed awake longer than most. But it's my shift now. I turned in a slow circle, scanning the empty room. Where are you? At your desk, she said. I almost dropped the headset, because that didn't make sense. I was at my desk. I looked at my hands, my legs, still sitting in the same chair I'd always been in. But then I noticed something. The dust. When I first woke up, it had been undisturbed across the console. Now, there were fresh handprints across it, but they weren't mine. The shape was wrong. Too long, too narrow. I want to leave, I whispered. You can, she said, like she was humoring me. But there's nowhere to go. I looked at the door again. The white nothing beyond it seemed brighter now, like it was creeping closer to the glass. They'll call, she said. When they do, you'll answer. That's all you have to do. I shook my head. No, I'm not. The console lit up. All the dead monitors suddenly came alive, bathing the room in pale blue light. Line 1 flashed red. The ringtone was soft at first, then louder. A slow, patient pulse. Without thinking, I reached for the headset. But when I put it on, there was no voice on the line. There was only breathing. Slow, steady, matching my own. You see, she said. We're the same. They won't know the difference. Something clicked in my mind then. This wasn't about the call. This wasn't even about me picking up the line. It was about replacing me. I yanked the headset off and dropped it onto the desk. It landed with a heavy thud, too heavy. When I looked again, it wasn't the same headset. It was an old rotary phone, black and cracked, its cord frayed like it had been chewed. The dial spun slowly on its own. The ringing came from inside it now. I backed toward the far wall. I thought about running. But to where? The white nothing outside was still there, pressing against the glass. And behind me, I could hear footsteps. Slow, deliberate, measured. I didn't turn around. The voice was closer now. Not in the headset, not through the phone. Right behind me. You stayed awake for so long, it whispered. But I don't need you awake anymore. A hand touched my shoulder. Cold, dry, heavy. I turned. It was me. Same uniform. Same hair pulled back. Same face except the eyes. They were too still, too knowing. Like she'd been here far longer than me and had seen things I couldn't imagine. She smiled. Go rest. Before I could react, she stepped past me and sat at the console. Her movements were fluid, practiced, like she'd been doing this for years. The dust didn't cling to her hands. The monitors glowed brighter. She picked up the phone and said, 911. What's your emergency? In my exact voice. I stumbled back. The white outside the glass began to seep into the corners of the room, swallowing the far walls. She didn't notice. Or maybe she didn't care. She kept talking into the phone, nodding, scribbling notes on a pad that wasn't there. The air felt thinner. Every breath burned in my chest. I knew if I stayed, I'd dissolve into that whiteness, just like everything else. I ran to the back door, the one we never use except for fire drills. When I grabbed the handle, it turned easily. Too easily. Beyond it was darkness. Not the kind you see at night. This was thick. It had weight, texture like fog you could drown in. But it was better than the whiteness. At least, that's what I told myself. I stepped through. The door slammed behind me. The darkness swallowed everything. No sound. No floor. No air. I couldn't even feel my own body. Then, faintly, I heard it. The ringing. Not far away. Close. Inside me. I reached up and found the headset resting on my head again. Shift change complete, she whispered in my ear. When I opened my eyes, I wasn't in the darkness anymore. I was at the console. The real console. Bright lights. The sound of typing. Voices of my coworkers. Everything normal. Except the station was quiet in a way it never used to be. When I looked around, no one met my eyes. It was like they didn't see me at all. I touched my headset. It was on. The line was open. Your turn, she said. And then the call came through. The night it never ended. I've worked dispatch for almost 8 years now. 8 years of listening to strangers panic, scream, beg, and sometimes go silent before I can send help. You'd think after a while, the voices blur together. That's what I tell myself most nights. Just another call, another situation, another set of coordinates. You log it, pass it on, and move to the next. But the truth is, some calls burn into your brain. Sometimes it's because of the details. Sometimes it's because of the voice. And sometimes it's because the call doesn't make sense at all. This happened about 6 months ago on one of those endless night shifts where you feel like you're the only person left awake in the entire county. It was mid-February. The snow outside had been falling all day, heavy and wet, and by midnight, it had blanketed everything in a pale, suffocating quiet. The room smelled faintly of burnt coffee. The heaters hummed low under my desk, fighting to keep the cold from creeping into my boots. My partner, Jen, was out on her meal break, so it was just me, alone at the console, staring at the glowing maps, the blinking indicators, and that digital clock above the door that seemed to move slower with every minute. Then the phone rang. Not the casual, non-emergency line. The line. The one with the jarring, metallic chime that slices right into your chest. I took a breath and answered. 911. What's your emergency? A man's voice came through, sharp with panic. There's a fire. Oh my God, it's in the house. Please, my wife, she's... Sir, I need your address. 42 Maple. We're trapped. It's... His voice cracked into coughing. I could hear a woman screaming in the background, high and thin. I typed fast, sending the call through to fire and rescue. Stay on the line with me. How many people are inside? 3. Me, my wife, and... There was a loud crash, the sound of glass breaking, then the woman's voice again, this time closer to the phone. I caught only fragments, can't breathe, and please hurry, before the man's voice took over again. They're in the kitchen. The smoke, his coughing swallowed the rest. I kept my voice steady. Sir, the fire department is on the way. I need you to get low to the ground, crawl if you can, and then silence. Not the kind of silence where they hang up. The kind where the background noise cuts off mid-sound, like someone's pressed mute on the world. Sir, nothing. I called his name 3 times, but I realized I didn't know his name. He'd never given it. The line went dead. It happens. People drop their phones in chaos. The battery dies, the line gets damaged. I tried calling back, but it went as static. I assumed the responding units would handle it from there. I logged the call. The time read 2:14 a.m. I went back to staring at the map, waiting for the next thing. 15 minutes later, the phone rang again. Same line, same metallic chime. I answered. 911, what's your emergency? And I swear to you, it was the same man's voice. There's a fire. Oh my God, it's in the house. Please, my wife, she's... Sir, I cut in confused. Did you call earlier? What? No, 42 Maple, we're trapped, I froze. He was repeating the exact same words. Not just the same situation. The same words. Same tone. Same background sounds. The woman screaming. The glass breaking. The coughing. It wasn't like someone telling me the story again. It was like a recording playing in real time. I typed in the address, but my hands felt stiff. This time, I didn't interrupt. I just listened. He said 3, me, my wife, and exactly like before. Same break in a sentence. Same sound of something heavy falling over in the background. I mouthed the words with him, knowing what he'd say before he said it. There in the kitchen. The smoke, it's cut off again. Silence. The line went dead. The time read 2:29 a.m. My first thought was, it's a prank. Someone's playing back a recording to mess with dispatch. It happens, though not often, and never this elaborate. But before I could even finish that thought, my computer pinged with the fire unit status. They'd already been to 42 Maple. It was a single-story ranch house. No fire. No residents. Just fresh snow covering the driveway, untouched by tire tracks or footprints. I stared at that status report until my eyes blurred. I didn't log the second call. I just sat there, listening to the hum of the heaters, the faint buzz of the lights overhead. And then, 15 minutes later, the phone rang again. I answered without breathing. 911, what's your emergency? There's a fire. Oh my God, it's in the house. Please, my wife, she's... I almost dropped the receiver. Everything was identical. The cough, the shattering glass, the scream. I felt cold spread through my chest, heavy and slow, as I listened to him go through the exact sequence, the exact silences. And again, right after the smoke, it's silence. Deadline, 2:44 a.m. By then, my hands were trembling so badly, I had to press them into my thighs to steady them. I was thinking about how many more times this could happen before sunrise. Jen came back in from her break around 3. I didn't tell her right away. I didn't want to sound like I was losing it. But she noticed how pale I looked. You good? She asked, settling into her chair. I nodded too quickly. Yeah, just tired. We sat in silence, the quiet of the room now feeling wrong. Like we weren't alone. I kept watching the clock, waiting for it to hit the next 15-minute mark. When 2:59 a.m. came, I braced myself. My hand hovered over the receiver before the line even rang. And right on cue, metallic chime. I answered slowly this time. 911, what's your emergency? There's a fire. Oh my God. I hung up. I don't know why. I just couldn't hear it again. But less than a second later, the line lit up again. Same chime. I didn't answer. It rang until the system automatically marked it as missed, then went silent. Jen frowned. You're not going to take that? I lied. It's probably a repeat prank. I'll let it go to the system. She didn't push, but I noticed her eyes keep drifting toward me, like she knew there was more. The rest of the night was long. I didn't answer another call on that line unless Jen picked it up first. I busied myself with paperwork, checking incident reports, anything to avoid hearing that voice again. But I could still hear it in my head on a loop. The words, the sounds, even the silence at the end. When my shift finally ended at 6, I stepped outside into the icy air, expecting to see the sun just starting to rise. But the horizon was still black. I told myself it was just heavy cloud cover from the storm. I didn't realize until later. The clock above the door still read 2:14 a.m. I didn't notice it right away. It's funny how something impossible can slide into your life so quietly that you mistake it for coincidence at first. The night after that strange fire call, when the same man called twice, saying the exact same words, I told myself it was just a glitch. Or maybe the guy had some kind of mental breakdown and didn't remember calling the first time. I could live with that explanation. But the next night, it happened again. It was a little after 11 p.m., slow shift. I was half listening to the hum of the overhead lights, scrolling through old call logs just to keep my brain from falling asleep, when the radio came alive with an emergency dispatch from another operator in the county. Unit 12, possible domestic disturbance for 117 Westfield. The address meant nothing to me. Different jurisdiction. But about 15 minutes later, I heard it again. Same voice, same tone, same words. Not just similar. Identical. I know voices. You work here long enough, you memorize the way people breathe between sentences, the way they drag certain words. This was the same exact transmission. Even the faint background noise, the muffled TV in the distance, was the same. That's when I started paying attention. The next day, during roll call, I asked around. Anybody else notice duplicate calls? I tried to make it sound casual. Some shrugged. One guy laughed and said, "It's just déjà vu, kid. Wait till you've been here 10 years. You'll swear you're living the same night on repeat." I smiled like I got the joke, but it wasn't déjà vu. Déjà vu fades in a second. This felt like hearing a recording, but pretending it's live. The real crack in my logic came the third night. At exactly 1:04 a.m., I took a call from a woman on County Road 9. She said there was a man in her backyard, standing perfectly still under the floodlight. She gave her name, her address, and I could hear the sharp edge in her voice, the kind that comes when fear is pressing down on you and you're trying to sound in control. I sent units. They arrived. The man was gone. 14 minutes later, the phone rang again. Same woman, same name, same address, same man standing perfectly still under the floodlight. Same fear in her voice, except this time, she didn't sound like she remembered calling before. I checked the call log. Her number, time-stamped exactly 14 minutes after the first. The thing that really twisted my stomach? Her voice wasn't just similar. It was identical, not just in what she said, how she said it. Every breath, every quiver, every pause, perfectly matched. Like I was hearing a recording of her first call. I tried telling myself it could still be a coincidence. Maybe she just had the same words burned into her brain and repeated them exactly. People do weird things under stress. But over the next few nights, it spread. First it was 1 or 2 repeated calls a shift. Then 5 or 6. Not just from the same people, different emergencies, but always repeating. Always with that same eerie precision. An accident on Highway 19. Same details, same screams, same crunch of glass in the background twice. A missing child in Lakeside Trailer Park. Same frantic mother. Same crack at her voice on the word please twice. It was like the world was stuck on a loop, and we were the only ones who noticed. By the end of the week, I started keeping a tally in my notebook. Friday night, 9 repeats. Saturday, 14. Sunday, 23. I didn't even bother counting Monday. It started messing with my head. Every time the phone rang, I'd get this crawling feeling in my chest, like I'd already heard what was about to come out of the speaker. Sometimes, I'd pick up and know the exact first word they were going to say before they said it. It's hard to explain what that does to you. You start feeling less like a person and more like a radio stuck between 2 channels, just playing the same snippets over and over. I brought it up to Karen, the night supervisor. She's been here 22 years. I figured if anyone could tell me this was normal, it was her. She didn't even look at me while I explained. Just kept typing into her report. When I finished, she said, "Don't dwell on it." That was it. Not even that's weird, or I've noticed that too. Just don't dwell on it. The way she said it, like it was less advice and more in order. I thought maybe I was going crazy. I started recording audio of my shift. Not officially, just on my phone hidden under the desk. One night, I got 2 identical calls from a man reporting a house fire on Maple. After my shift, I played both recordings back to back. No difference. Not one. Not in words. Not in breathing. Not in background noise. Even the static on the line between his words matched perfectly. Do you know how impossible that is? It's not like these people were reading from a script. They didn't know they'd already called. Unless they weren't calling again at all. Unless something was playing them back to me. The dream started soon after. I'd dream I was at my desk, headset on, phone ringing. I'd pick up, and I'd hear my own voice on the other end. Not speaking to me, just repeating things I'd said before, like it was stitched together from old calls. In the dream, I'd try to hang up, but my hand would freeze halfway to the receiver. The phone would keep ringing. I stopped sleeping much after that. The calls kept stacking up, the loops coming faster. Sometimes the second one would hit only a few minutes after the first. Then one night, it wasn't a second call. It was the same call at the same time. Two lines lit up, both with the same number. I answered one. The operator next to me answered the other. And we both heard the same voice, the same words at the same time. Perfectly synced. That's when I realized whatever was happening wasn't just in my head. The weirdest part was how nobody outside dispatch seemed to notice. The cops who responded to these calls didn't act like they'd been there twice. They'd get the second dispatch, show up, and treat it like the first time. Even when I asked them, "Weren't you just here?" They'd look confused, check their watch, and say nope, like the first time never happened. I thought maybe time itself was broken. Like, maybe the night was rewinding in little chunks, but only for me and the other operators. But if that were true, why did the clocks keep moving forward? Why did my shift still end at 6 a.m.? And if time was looping, where was everything going when it repeated? A few nights ago, I stayed late after shift. Not for overtime, just because I couldn't stand the idea of walking outside into the night and seeing something out there looping too. The center was quiet. Everyone else had gone home. I pulled up the recording archive on my console and searched for duplicates. It didn't take long to find them. Same call IDs, logged 15 minutes apart. But when I tried to play the first version of each, they were gone. Not deleted, just missing, like the system had never recorded them. Only the second version was there. And yet, I remember taking both. I remember hearing both. I sat there for a long time, staring at the empty space in the logs, thinking about how you can erase something so cleanly it's like it never existed, and how maybe that's what was happening to us. Maybe something was replacing the real calls with copies. The next night, I started recognizing the repeats before they happened. The moment the phone rang, I'd feel it, this heavy, sinking certainty that I'd already taken that exact call. And I'd be right. Every detail, every sound. Sometimes I'd even mouth along to the caller's words, just to see if I could. It always matched. Now, I'm starting to wonder if this is just the beginning. Because tonight, something new happened. At 3:07 a.m., I took a call from a man reporting a prowler outside his window. We sent units. At 3:07 a.m., I took the same call again. Same man, same voice, same prowler. I looked at the clock, still 3:07 a.m. It stayed that way for the rest of my shift, and the calls kept coming, over and over. The same voices, the same words, the same second in time. I don't know if this is still a night shift anymore. I think it's just the same night, and I don't know how many times I've lived it already. If the clock never moves again, I guess I'll never know when it ends. Or if it ever does, I didn't notice the time at first. That's the weird part. When something's wrong, you expect alarms in your head to go off right away. But that night, it crept in so slow, I didn't even realize I was already inside it. It was sometime past 3 in the morning. The call room was quiet, too quiet for an active shift, but not dead either. Phone still rang, just slower. The soft hum of the fluorescent lights above my desk had started to feel louder than normal. I remember sitting back in my chair, rubbing my eyes, and glancing at the wall clock. 3:07 a.m. I didn't think anything of it. I took another sip of coffee, lukewarm now, and waited for the next call. It came about a minute later. A woman panicked. "There's someone in my backyard," she whispered. She said she could see the shadow through her curtains, standing still, just watching. I took her information, kept her talking, told her officers were on their way. As she described the figure, tall, no face, just dark clothes, I felt this pull, like I'd heard it before. When she said the part about its head tilting, slow, unnatural, like it was studying her, my stomach dropped. Because I had heard it before, word for word. I brushed it off as déjà vu. Call ended. I logged it, leaned back, looked at the clock again. 3:07 a.m. That's when it hit me. I'd been on that call for at least 6 minutes. There was no way the clock hadn't moved. I stared at it for a full minute. Nothing. Second hand frozen. I checked my watch. 3:07 a.m. exactly. The clock on my computer? 3:07. My phone? 3:07. Every single one. Before I could process that, the phone rang again. Same number, same woman, same trembling voice. "There's someone in my backyard," she said. Same shadow, same head tilt, same exact pauses in her words, like she was reading from a script she didn't know she had. This time I didn't interrupt. I let her talk, my skin crawling because I could finish her sentences in my head before she said them. I dispatched the call anyway, because what else do you do? And when I hung up, I checked the clock. Still 3:07. Another call. This one was different, but still wrong. A man yelling that his kitchen was on fire. I knew his address before he said it. I knew the fire was in the corner near the fridge before he told me. I even knew the exact moment his voice would break when he yelled for help. Like I was listening to a recording I'd already played. It happened again and again. Different emergencies, car accident, break-in, house fire, but all of them exactly the same as ones I'd taken before. Identical details, identical timing, and each time I could tell them what they were going to say before they said it. I stopped writing the calls down. There didn't seem to be a point. My notes from earlier in the shift already matched what was happening now. The room felt smaller, like the air itself was thickening, pressing against my skin. Every light seemed too bright and too dim at the same time. I could feel sweat on the back of my neck, even though it was freezing. Then, at some point, I realized I couldn't hear the other dispatchers. I looked around. Every desk was empty. No coffee cups, no chairs pulled out, no movement at all. Just my own breathing in the room. That's when the phone rang again. I answered, my hand shaking. The voice was my own. "There's someone in my backyard," it said. My voice, my tone, my breathing. It repeated the exact words from the woman's call, but it was me saying them. I didn't hang up. I just sat there, holding the phone, listening to myself describe the shadow, the head tilt, the fear. The sound of my own panic was worse than hers. When it ended, the line went dead. I checked the clock. 3:07. I don't know how long I sat there before the phone rang again. This time, I knew it before I even picked up. A crash, a voice yelling, tires squealing. I mouthed the words in perfect sync with the man on the other end. But when I told him help was coming, he said something I'd never heard before. "No, it's not," he whispered. "You're stuck here too." The line went silent. That was when I stood up. My legs felt heavy, like I'd been sitting for days. The hallway outside the call room looked wrong. Too long, too dark. The hum of the lights seemed to follow me, growing louder with every step. I went to the break room. Same thing. Clock on the wall, frozen at 3:07. I pulled my phone out, thinking maybe I could restart it. The screen lit up, but it wasn't my home screen. It was the call log. Every number listed was the same. No caller ID, and the timestamp on each, 3:07 a.m. I scrolled down. There were hundreds, thousands, all from 3:07 a.m. I felt my throat tighten. The phone rang again. I didn't want to answer, but I did. It was a child this time. A little boy, crying. "There's a man in my room," he said. I knew the rest of the call by heart. Except, this one didn't stop where it should have. He kept talking. "He's smiling at me. He says he knows you." I froze. "He says you're next." I hung up. I don't remember walking back to my desk, but I remember sitting down and feeling like my body was vibrating. The phone wouldn't stop ringing now. Over and over, faster, overlapping. The same calls repeating, the same voices, but now they were all talking at once. Some were mine. Some were strangers. Some whispered things I couldn't understand. Some screamed. The lights flickered. And then, just as suddenly, silence. I looked at the clock. Still 3:07. The phone didn't ring again. For a moment, I thought maybe it was over. Then I heard it. From the headset on my desk. Not ringing, breathing. Slow. Steady, like someone was right there on the other end. I picked it up, my hand trembling. "You can't stop it," the voice said. My voice again. "This is all there is now." Calls. Repeats. Loops forever. And then, in the background, I heard the woman's voice from the first call. "There's someone in my backyard." I dropped the headset. The lights went out. When they came back, I was back at my desk, coffee still warm, computer screen glowing. The phone rang. I answered without thinking. "There's someone in my backyard," she said. I looked at the clock. 3:07 a.m. And this time, I didn't bother writing it down that I don't know how long I've been here anymore. The station feels hollow, not quiet. The phones still ring. The hum of the lights is still there, but hollow. Like sound doesn't carry the way it should. I've checked the windows more times than I can count. The darkness outside hasn't changed. Not even a shift in the clouds, not a sliver of dawn. I can't see the moon. I can't see stars. Just black, like the glass is painted from the other side. Every clock still says 3:07 a.m. At first, I thought maybe the power had glitched. The wall clocks, the desk clocks, the tiny battery one in my locker, all stuck. But then I looked at my watch. Dead still, both hands frozen in place. My phone to black screen. Won't turn on. It's like time just decided it was done. But the calls keep coming. They've gotten quieter now, in a way that makes no sense. Quieter but closer. I don't have to press the headset tight to hear them. Sometimes I think I'd hear them, even if I took it off. The first few hours, if hours even exist anymore, I still try to log them. Same details over and over, like a bad recording on loop. Car crash on Route 9. Gas leak at the old diner. Man screaming in the alley behind Briggs Hardware. Every voice sounded the same as the first time I heard them. Every panic beat for beat. Same words, same breaths, same pauses. I could mouth along to the calls because I knew exactly what they'd say next. It didn't take long before I stopped writing anything down. I just sat there, headset on, waiting for the next one to start. At some point, the lights above me began to dim and hum louder, like they were straining. Not flickering, just dragging like they were trying to keep themselves alive. I kept glancing toward the exit door, but every time I thought about leaving, something in my chest locked up, like I knew that if I stepped out, there would be nothing there. Not just dark, nothing. I don't think I'm supposed to go. I started to notice something strange with the calls. The voices weren't strangers anymore. Not all of them. The woman from the gas leak call, her voice wasn't just familiar because I'd heard it loop a dozen times. It was familiar because it was my mom's. Not how she sounds now, but how she sounded when I was a kid, when she'd call me in for dinner from the porch. The man from the alley call, his voice had my brother's edge to it. The way he dragged certain words. And the girl from the crash. Her voice was mine. I froze the first time I caught it. I thought maybe I was imagining it. But when the call played again, I leaned in and listened. It was me. Not how I sound right now. Younger, shakier. Like I was scared and trying not to cry. Hearing yourself beg for help is not something you can explain. I stopped trying to answer the calls like a dispatcher. I didn't tell them help is on the way anymore. I just listened. Because something told me they weren't real emergencies. Or maybe they were, but not here. Not in this version of the world. I kept thinking about how the clocks had stopped. If time wasn't moving, then maybe these calls weren't happening now. Maybe they weren't even from the same place. Maybe they were from somewhere else. I must have fallen asleep at some point, even though I don't remember it. I woke up with my forehead pressed to the desk, the headset hanging around my neck. I sat up, and everything was exactly the same. Lights dim. Darkness outside. 3:07 a.m. Except for one thing. There was no phone ringing. It should have been a relief, but it wasn't. The silence felt heavier than the calls. I realized how much I'd gotten used to them. The rhythm, the way they broke up the stillness. When the next ring finally came, it didn't sound right. It was softer, slower. Each chime dragging, like it had to pull itself into existence. I picked it up without even saying the standard greeting. At first, there was just static. Not the loud, messy kind, soft, like a whisper pressed through snow. Then breathing. I knew the sound of my own breathing before the voice even started speaking. It was me, not the younger version I'd heard before. Not a distorted or looped voice. It was exactly me. "Don't answer," my voice said. My throat tightened. "What? You have to hang up. You can't answer the next one." I tried to say something, anything, but my voice on the line kept going, "Urgent now. If you answer, you won't be able to hang up. Do you understand? You'll stay here. Forever." I could hear my own breaths shaking on the line. I forced words out. "What's happening? What is this place?" There was a long pause. My own voice came back quieter. "It's after. You don't get out of after." The static surged, swallowing the rest of the sound. Then the line went dead. I pulled the headset off, dropped it on the desk, and shoved my chair back so hard it tipped over. I stood there, staring at it, like it might start moving on its own. The air in the room felt wrong. Heavy, like it was pressing down, pushing me toward the desk again. And then the phone rang. Not slow this time. Not soft. Sharp. Urgent. I backed away until my shoulders hit the wall. The sound filled the room, vibrating through me. It kept ringing and ringing. Every part of me wanted to pick it up, not out of curiosity, but because it felt like I had no choice. Like there was a string tied from the receiver to my chest, pulling. I pressed my hands over my ears. It didn't help. The sound wasn't just in the room, it was inside my head. I don't know how long I stood there before I broke. I grabbed the receiver with shaking hands and pressed it to my ear. No static this time. No delay. It was my voice again. But this time, it wasn't warning me. It was crying. Please, it said. Please hang up. Don't let it be me. Don't let it happen again. I didn't answer. I couldn't. My throat wouldn't work. You know what happens if you stay on? My voice begged. You've already heard me. You know. I closed my eyes. My hand wouldn't move. The phone felt fused to my skin. I'm not supposed to be here, my voice said. Neither are you. But if you stay, you become the call. Do you get it? You don't send help. You are the help. Forever. Something cold spread through me, starting at my fingers on the receiver, moving up my arm. I thought about all the voices I'd heard. All the ones I'd thought were strangers until they started sounding like people I knew. They weren't strangers. They were the ones who had answered. And now it was my turn. The voice on the line, my voice, was still begging. Quieter now. Resigned. The cold had reached my chest. My thoughts were slowing, like they were getting trapped in ice. I realized then, there wasn't going to be a morning. There hadn't been one since the clock stopped. 3:07 a.m. forever. The next call would come, and I would answer, and someone else would hear me on the line, begging. I think the phone is ringing again now. I don't know how to hang up.